If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 21, The Unseen Memory. That Saturday I get called into Dumbledore's office. I'm kind of scared that he found out about what I did to Malfoy and his lackeys. I would prefer to not get expelled. I can't protect Harry as well on the outside. I also have started to make friends here. I like it a lot, and learning is fun. McGonagall came and snatched me from the common room. As we make our way to Dumbledore's office, I don't speak. She makes me wait outside the office and I just stare at the door in boredom. I say door, but it was actually a wall that had a gargoyle in front of it that would slide to the side when you spoke the password. McGonagall walks up to the gargoyle and it speaks to her password. Lemon ice. As she speaks, the wall opens by rotating counterclockwise out of the way. She takes a glance back at me before quickly walking inside. I stand there waiting for a few minutes until McGonagall finally comes out again. "All right, the headmaster will see you now," she says, exasperated. I give her a smile and a nod while walking by. As I walk in, I see his office is full of magical objects in a fairly large 2-story circular space. The walls are bookshelves lined with thick books, and behind his desk has a second level containing portraits lining the walls. I assume they are portraits of past headmasters because the big center one was of Dumbledore himself. Many of them stare at me with interest while the rest just ignore my existence. Dumbledore himself is leaning against his desk at the center of the room. Next to him on a perch was a phoenix. The phoenix had red feathers on its upper body and top of the head, while golden feathers adorned the rest. I smirk at the bird, who seems to stare at me curiously. Upon seeing me walk in, Dumbledore smiles. "Hello, young man." "Hello, headmaster." I lower my head a bit out of respect. "Do you know why I called you here, Mr. Black?" Dumbledore asked. No sir." I shiver as I stare at his twinkling eyes. The shine in his eyes made him look a bit younger, but it scared me since I knew the truth. Only those who contain massive power have glowing eyes. It is the sign of a superior being. "I wanted to talk about the interesting conversation you had with Hagrid last weekend." He slowly sits down as he speaks. I let out a sigh of relief. Thank God. Dumbledore laughs. "Did you think I called you to talk about your little scuffle with the Malfoy boy?" My eyes go wide. He knew. He again laughs at my surprise. "There is not much that happens in this school that gets past my eye." They kind of." He waves his hand. "It's fine, I know you didn't actually hurt them, and I know what they do to the other students." I sigh in relief again. "So what did you want to ask?" "You told Hagrid that your father was not the secret keeper, and he was wrongfully locked away." He asks while stroking his long grey beard. "He was indeed not the secret keeper, however he did indeed commit the crime, at least he thought he did. He went to chase Pettigrew that day, angry that his brother had just died because of his betrayal. When he confronted him, Pettigrew hid among a crowd of muggles, and when they exchanged spells, a rouge spell ended up killing some of the muggles." Dumbledore nods but still appears doubtful. Noticing this, I continue. "Actually, do you have a pensieve? I can actually show you what happened that day." I pull out a crystal phial I prepared beforehand. Inside it has a wispy white substance floating around like a stringy cloud. It was the memory of that day. I had originally stored it to give to the Ministry to prove his innocence. That way he could be remembered as a man wrongfully imprisoned, not a traitor, but this works as well. Dumbledore nods, and with the wave of his hand, a wall is pushed aside, revealing a basin filled with a bluish liquid. It is resting on a pillar that appears to be made of a fine marble-like material. Dumbledore waves a hand again and the basin floats off of the pillar as if never attached. It floats in the air between me and Dumbledore's desk. I see him gesture to me as it floats a bit closer to me. I carefully take the stopper out of the crystal phial and pour the memory into the pensieve. The stringy liquid slowly floats out of the phial onto the basin. As it touches the top of the water, it dissolves into black clouds, forming shapes inside the basin's waters. I look up at Dumbledore and gesture at the pensieve. "Go ahead." Dumbledore nods his head and steps forward while holding his beard in place. He slowly moves his head down until it is submerged in the basin up to his ears. Inside the memory. The black memory floated down slowly, forming shapes until the landscape was complete. It was a London street in the early morning. A man in his early 20s could be seen walking fast through the crowds of people. He was handsome with a finely trimmed beard and shoulder-length hair around 5 feet 11 inches. This was Sirius Black. Sirius had dark bags under his eyes and they were a bit bloodshot. He obviously had not been sleeping well. He charged forward through the crowds of people with a fast strut. As he approached an opening in the crowd near an intersection, he drew his wand and began to walk even faster. Sirius raised his wand as he exited the crowd. "Why? Why did you do it? They trusted you. I trusted you. Sirius yelled to a man who appeared to have just noticed him. The desperate yell seemed to part the crowd a bit. The man across from him was fat, with beady eyes, big front teeth, and a few inches shorter than Sirius. It was Peter Pettigrew, the man who had betrayed the Potters. Pettigrew backed up towards the intersection, but seeing cars coming he knew he had to confront Sirius, or at least buy time to get away. Sirius, I didn't have a choice. He would have killed me, you know you can't lie to that man. Sirius's face darkens even more as veins bulge in his neck. Then you should have just died. Sirius's words dripped with hate as his eyes seemed to stab daggers. He flicked his wand and a spell flew out, but Pettigrew knew it was coming and had already drawn his wand to deflect it. The Muggles didn't know what was going on and simply watched the light show go on without fear. Sirius kept flinging spells at Pettigrew, forcing him to back up into the traffic of oncoming cars. Pettigrew did his best to not get hit by the oncoming cars. Luck seemed to be on his side as the light changed and the traffic stopped. Seeing this, Pettigrew took his chance and turned to run, but Sirius wouldn't let him. Incarcerus, Sirius chanted aloud. A bolo shot out of his wand and wrapped itself around Pettigrew's legs, tripping him. Turning back to Sirius, Pettigrew pleaded, Sirius, please, I was wrong. I should never have sided with you-know-who, just let me go. It worked out for the best anyway, right? He is gone now. These words only served to inflame Sirius's anger. Sirius was now standing in the middle of the intersection, conf Ringo. Pettigrew rolled out of the way, but when the spell hit the ground it created a massive explosion. The explosion knocked down a few Muggles and caused the others to run away in fear. Pettigrew shifted into his rat form to get out of the bolo, then immediately shifted back, throwing a spell at Sirius. Seeing that the spell missed him, Sirius ignored it. In an unlucky turn of events it was flung into the crowd of Muggles behind him. The explosion caused carnage. It instantly killed a few Muggles and maimed a few others. It had also caused a light pole to fall over, injuring the few who thought they were safe. At this point, even the Muggles in their cars were getting out and fleeing. Sirius got even angrier and drew upon the darkest spell he knew, just short of the unforgivable curses Sectum Sempra. He swung his wand from left to right like a sword. Pettigrew raised an arm to protect himself but failed. The spell severed his pinky and left a large gash across his chest. Pettigrew screamed, throwing one last spell in desperation. Luckily for him, the spell hit the car Sirius was standing next to, causing it to explode, knocking Sirius over. Pettigrew quickly transformed into his rat form and ran away crippled. As he stood up and looked around, he saw that Pettigrew was gone, only a finger and a puddle of blood remained. But before he could confirm his kill, people rapidly began operating in. There were now 5 or 6 people walking at him from every angle. They were aurors. They all had their wands pointed at Sirius as they slowly approached him. For the crimes of exposing magic to Muggles and the murder of Muggles, you will be taken into custody and put on trial. One of them spoke. No, wait, before he could explain they began to fling spells at him. He tried his best to block but was quickly overwhelmed and knocked unconscious. As he was knocked out, the landscape faded into black clouds. As the clouds vanished, Dumbledore exited the memory. Soren's POV. As Dumbledore raises his head from the pensieve, he now has a face full of anger. I didn't even know this old man had emotion. I think even during Sirius's day Dumbledore never really shared anything but slight happiness. He looks at me with obviously mixed feelings. I will talk to the Ministry about clearing your father's name. He pauses for a moment, then lowers his head a bit. I am truly sorry for your loss. I will make sure Pettigrew's body is found and his death is confirmed. But if he is not dead? He raises his head and looks me in the eyes. Now that we know Pettigrew is an unregistered animagus, it shouldn't be impossible to find him, or maybe it will. If he is alive, that is. I just shake my head. No, I will make sure Pettigrew is found. Dumbledore looks back at me, seeing the seriousness on my face, and just nods. There is also one thing I wanted to ask you. I speak with new confidence now that I know Dumbledore seems like a good man. Anything? Why did you put Harry with his aunt and uncle? They do nothing short of torture him. You could hear the resentment in my voice. Dumbledore sighs, obviously frustrated by this as well. When his mother gave her life for him, she either by miracle or intentionally put an old magic sacrificial spell on him. By giving her life for him with absolutely no other reason than love, she put a protective charm on him. The charm is old magic, meaning unbreakable. Harry can never be killed while living in a house of blood. So as long as he lives with his aunt, he can never die at the hands of others. Dumbledore speaks slowly. I nod. I am fairly familiar with what old magic is. That is because Sid looked into it as his first option for immortality. I see, thank you for answering. Is there anything else? Dumbledore shakes his head no, and thank you. Minerva will take you back to your house. Goodbye, I say as I walk away. I'm glad I got to clear Sirius's name, and I feel a bit more reassured about Harry staying in that house, not that I'm happy about it. Chapter 22, Halloween. The following Thursday was Hermione's birthday. I didn't know until an owl came with a few presents for her. I felt kind of bad, so I wrote to Auntie to grab me a book from the Black family library. The next day Auntie sent the book. It was Protective Charms and Their History. When I gifted it I felt even because she told me I'm the only one from Hogwarts to give her anything. When I started asking around no one even knew it was her birthday. Neville, Ron, and Harry hadn't even known. Not to mention she had been focusing on studying so much that Harry, Ron, and I were the only ones she talked to in or out of class. A few more weeks passed. I have been trying to get Hermione to start hanging out with Neville, Harry, Ron, and I more often, but she would always leave at different times seemingly on purpose. I think at this point I can say for certain she likes books more than people. Neville, Ron, Harry, and I are all eating breakfast when Shy came with my mail and Harry got a large package. Harry rushes to open it as it would run away. It turns out to be a brand new broom. The broom has a dark cedar handle, with sleekly pushed down straw on the bottom. It would make a horrible cleaning device, but that's obviously not what it's made for. As Harry finishes opening it, Ron yells, "That's a Nimbus 2000. Ron looks really envious. I've never even touched one. His kind of foolish words make me smile. Ron, you have one 2 feet away from you, just touch it. Ron's eyes dart between Harry and me. Harry just nods his head and pushes the broom closer to him. Ron slowly moved out his hand to the broom. The people who had gathered around watch him in anticipation. As he touches it he quickly pulls back his hand and squeals like a kid who just got a puppy. As everyone around him seems to be just excited as Ron, Harry picks up the note. It was attached to the broom on the bristles. I lean over and read it from over his shoulder. It reads, "Oliver Wood will meet you tonight on the Quidditch field at 7 o'clock for your first training session. Signed, Professor McGonagall." Both Harry and I look up at where McGonagall sits. She gives Harry a smile and a nod. Is this woman actually into children? I wonder. From across the hall, I can see Draco eyeing the broom confused, but the second we meet eyes he looks away and puts his head down. I roll my eyes at his actions. Does he think I will beat him here? I would obviously wait till we are alone. That week Harry started going to practice with Woods nearly every day. While he was gone I would go to the library with Hermione. We would talk about a lot of stuff. I learned that she was avoiding Ron and Harry because she felt that they didn't care enough about the rules. Which to be fair is true, but I'm at fault too. Why isn't she mad at me? Probably because I'm smarter than her. On Halloween, I wake up in the morning to the smell of pumpkins and fresh fallen leaves. I quickly head down the stairs to find the common room has been decorated with autumn harvest colors and jack-o'-lanterns. Even the breakfast is Halloween-styled, with pumpkin puffs and toffee apples. Not the healthiest breakfast, but I thoroughly enjoy it. During Charms class we are told to pair up. I go with Neville, Harry pairs with Dean, Hermione reluctantly pairs with Ron. After we are sorted into our pairs, Flitwick gives each of us feathers and started a speech. "Now do not forget the wrist movement I taught you." Professor Flitwick paces back and forth with his eyes wandering around the room. "Swish and flick, remember, swish and flick. And saying the magic words properly is very important, too. Never forget Wizard Baruffio, who said S instead of F and found himself on the floor with a buffalo on his chest." I raise my wand and am about to cast, but Seamus at the table next to me interrupts with a yell, "Wingardium Leviosa!" The feather floats for half a second before falling back to the table, bursting into flames. "I did it!" he yells. Professor Flitwick speaks up, "Next time try not to set it on fire, Mr. Finnegan. Then we may perhaps consider it a success." I look back at my feather and with a swish and flick speak Wingardium Leviosa. The feather starts floating following my wand motions. I smirk as this is actually my first time casting this spell and I am a bit proud. Professor Flitwick claps, "Well done, Mr. Black. Look here class, this is how you do it." Ron looks over with Hermione and I can hear Ron say Wingardium Leviosa. However, he is using a short A sound, not a long A. I turn around to look and sure enough, his feather is in fact not floating. It perhaps appears to be one of the heaviest and most stable feathers I've ever seen. Hermione gently taps its shoulder. "It's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa," she says with a reluctant gaze. Well, if you're so smart, why don't you do it? Ron says with anger. Hermione clears her throat. Wingardium Leviosa with a swish and flick, the feather begins to float, slowing, going up as if being pulled up by a taut string. Below us, at the head of the class, I hear Flitwick clapping. Good job, Miss Granger. I also give a small clap, which causes Ron to turn around and glare at me. Seeing him glare at me, I just shrug and give him a smile. He honestly looks defeated. I turn to look at what Harry is doing, but just see him and Dean struggling to get any movement out of the feather at all. Looks like he didn't get his mother's talent at charms. I think to myself. After class, I walk out with Ron, Harry, and Neville, since Hermione declined to come, probably not wanting to walk with Ron. While we are walking through the courtyard, Ron interrupts the conversation Neville and I are having with his loud voice. I swear that girl is a nightmare. Leviosa, not Leviosa. It's no wonder she doesn't have any friends, Ron says, much to my distaste. As he finishes his sentence, Hermione walks past us in a near jog with her face in her books. I get a little mad and walk up behind Ron, giving a good smack to the side of his head. You better go apologize to her later. I give him a stern glare. But Ron tries to defend himself, but Harry cuts him off. No, Ron, that was kind of mean. Even Harry looks a bit mad at him. Ugh, fine, I'll do it after classes. Harry and I nod. Chapter 23, A Troll in the Dungeon. As we arrive at our next class, I notice the seat next to me is empty. Hermione isn't here. When class is let out, instead of heading to the Great Hall for the Halloween feast, we head back to the common rooms to check for Hermione. After a bit of searching and asking, we conclude she isn't in the common room, so we ask a girl to check the girls' dorm rooms, but she wasn't there either. I get a bit worried, so we start asking around outside the dorms. Turns out the Slytherin girls have been talking about it almost all day. Since this morning, Hermione has been in the girls' bathroom on the bottom floor crying since around lunchtime. When I hear this, I gave Ron another glare. I am tempted to hit him again, but he already looks remorseful, so I decided to let him off, this time. As we start heading down, we are blocked by a large crowd of students heading away from the Great Hall. I decide to stop someone I recognize and ask why they were all leaving the feast. The first person I notice is Dean, so I quickly grab him out of the crowd. What happened? Shouldn't you all be eating at the feast right now? It doesn't end for another hour and a half. Dean looks kind of rushed. There is a troll in the dungeons, Quirrell found it. He rushed into the Great Hall shouting, then passing out cold on the floor. I let go of his arm and he runs off following the pack of students. I turn to look at Harry and Ron, they are both wide-eyed. I'll grab Hermione, you two head back right now. Ron and Harry both shake their heads. We are coming with. Harry says with confidence. Ron nods in agreement. It's my fault she is in danger in the first place, I have to go help. For once Ron says something I actually agree with. I stare at them for a second, obviously a bit hesitant. Fine, but if we run into the troll, you guys have to run when I say. They both agree with a small nod like baby chicks. I take off first as we start running down the stairs. I'm tempted to fly, but I don't want to get expelled or worse, hunted down as a dark wizard, further ostracizing my family. So instead I just do my best to rush down. She shouldn't be in immediate danger if the troll was spotted in the dungeons not that long ago. Although the bathrooms are close to the dungeon, he still has to head out towards the stairs. As we get to the bottom of the staircase, I can see the girls' bathroom entrance near the very end of the hall. As we start running towards the bathrooms, we can see a large figure around 3.5 meters tall come out from the entrance of the dungeons. My eyes narrow. Run faster, I say as I speed up even more. The troll is around 13 feet tall and is carrying a 4-foot wooden club. It has rough grey skin, with broad shoulders, and a stupid-looking long face. It is heading straight towards the girls' bathroom, probably because you can hear running water coming out of it. We are still around 20 meters away from it, so all I can do is pull out my wand to prepare. By the time the troll steps into the bathroom, we are only 50 or so feet away from the entrance. That's when we hear a scream and a crash. We run inside to see the giant staring down at Hermione as it brings up its club to swing at her. As it swings down its club, I chant "Conf Ringo." I hit the troll in the small of its back, causing a small explosion, knocking it forward. Thanks to that, it missed Hermione and crushed the stalls next to her while falling over. I turn to see Harry and Ron running in. I hold my wand towards the troll to make sure it doesn't move again. Hermione, hurry up and get over here, I say with a loud yet calm voice. Grab her, I order Harry and Ron. She starts to stumble over the rubble that used to be the toiletries, but Ron and Harry run up and grab her. The troll rolls over to its back looking down at me over the fat lump of a belly. I shake my head as it starts to get up. Glaces. A beautiful frosty blue light flies off my wand at the troll. Just as it can finally stand up, it freezes in place, covered by a thin layer of ice. Go! I gesture my head toward the door without looking away from the troll. Ron and Harry nod, but Hermione protests. No, we won't just leave you here. Ron and Harry start to pull her along, but her protests turn louder. What are you guys doing? He can't just fight a troll alone. We will only get in the way trying to help, Harry admits. Yet, you should have seen him duel Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, Ron adds. This is a troll, it's different. Ron and Harry continue to drag her out anyway. Hurry up, I insist. I just want them out of my hair at this point. The troll is of no real threat to me. To them, it may be different. To me, this troll is nothing more than a minor annoyance. That being said, it is a bit intimidating as the first beast I've actually fought. My serious face breaks a bit as I hear Harry's desperate voice from the hallway. We need to find a teacher. He yells. Once I hear them a fair distance away, my face turns from serious into a smile. The troll begins to break the layer of ice encasing it with a loud cracking sound. I cross my arms as I rub my chin. I am pondering how to kill the troll. Then it comes to me. Sin, you wanna have some fun? I can feel him rapidly tapping my shoulder, causing my smile to widen playfully. The troll looks furious as it starts to completely break the ice, waving about its club wildly. I grab Sin from my neck and throw him into the air. Once he reaches a few feet above me, he expands to the size of a blanket and floats toward the troll. The troll just stares at it, coming at him with a dumb look. Sin gently lands on the troll's face, but the troll doesn't seem to mind much. Only once he tries to get Sin off his face does he begin to get agitated. The troll squirms as he drops his club and claws at Sin on his face, but to no avail. His hands seem to go right through Sin, like Sin isn't even wrapped around his face. I just stand there and watch as it falls over, struggling to breathe. The beast's struggle seems to be getting weaker and weaker, its breathing becomes ragged, then drastically lighter. Once its struggle finally stops, Sin slowly unravels from its face and flies over to me, going back to normal size. As it coils off the troll's face and heads towards me, Sin seems to be strutting a bit in his own way, causing me to laugh. As he wraps around my neck again, I ask him with a smile, have fun. Sin taps my shoulder again and seemingly purrs with a small vibration. I give him a few pats and tuck him lower into my robe so I won't get into trouble for being against the dress code. I walk up to the troll's face and look down, observing it. I notice it is still breathing a little. I assume since Sin is a predator, he didn't want to steal his master's prey. So stand over the troll, I raise my wand at its head and chant Reducto. A red light strikes the crown of the troll's head and the area from head to shoulders is obliterated into dust. I feel kind of bad for the troll. After all, it's too stupid to understand what it's doing is wrong. But I won't allow anything that threatens my friends to live. This new life is a gift and I intend to treasure it. I hear running coming from the corridor, so I step away from the corpse. McGonagall and Dumbledore come running through the entrance with their wands drawn. Ron, Harry, and Hermione weren't far behind. McGonagall, upon seeing the corpse, is about to speak, but she is cut off by Hermione. Soren. She ran at me and wrapped her arms around me in a hug. Quite forward, I see, a bit out of character. I tease her with a smile. But she doesn't seem to care and buries her face in my chest. I just pat her head like a good older brother. I look at Ron and Harry, who are standing there awkwardly. Thanks for listening to me, I say with a smile. They look a bit awkward but still say we trusted you. Which made me pretty happy. McGonagall breaks the moment. As touching as this is, you will all still need to be punished. Why were you here anyway when the school went into lockdown? Ron was about to make an excuse but was cut off by Hermione. She pushes off of me and wipes her face. It was my fault, Hermione explained, turning to face McGonagall, still teary-eyed. Indeed, I say with a smile. Hermione looks at me with a glare which makes me smile more. Indeed, we heard Hermione was still in the bathroom when the lockdown was called, so we decided to come to get her. We didn't expect the troll would show up, so I told them to run while I hold it back. But I ended up getting lucky and killed it. I explain. Harry, Ron, and Hermione look astonished. I told the truth. Well, at least my altered version of the truth at least. McGonagall just shakes her head. You are aware you could all be expelled for what you just said? I look at Dumbledore. But we won't, will we? Dumbledore nods and speaks. You will never be expelled for trying to save your fellow student. However, you have to be punished. 25 points will be taken from Gryffindor, for each one of you 4. For being out during a lockdown and breaking the rules. He took a long pause and looked a bit hesitant. In spite of that, you three showed excellent bravery when learning your friend was in danger. 20 points for each of you. Soren. He locks eyes with me. You have shown the very ideal of a Gryffindor. Courage, bravery, chivalry, daring, and nerves. You will be awarded an additional 50 points. I smile along with a cheering Ron, Harry, and Hermione. McGonagall still has a stern scowl but does indeed look a bit happy. Tell me, Mr. Black, how did you defeat the troll? Yeah, how? Everyone looks at me expectantly. I rub the back of my head. I got off a lucky reducto. Everyone looks taken aback, even Dumbledore. But reducto isn't taught until the 4th year. McGonagall looks skeptical. My older sister is an aura in training, so I know a lot about defense against the dark arts. I use Sis Dora as an excuse again. Please forgive me, sis. I think to myself. A look of realization dawns on everyone and McGonagall nods. I will be taking you all back to the Gryffindor house. Do not talk about what happened today. With that, we head back to the dorms hungry. Even with her saying to not spread it, Ron's big mouth couldn't keep shut. The entirety of Gryffindor found out in a day and the whole school knew in a week. I became rather famous, more like infamous, since a lot of kids seemed scared of me now. Chapter 24, Quidditch Fiasco. Next week was the start of Quidditch, so Harry and I went to the library to read books about the game. The more I read about it, the less interested I become. It is quite a barbaric game, really. The bludgers used to be enchanted rocks that would chase players, and it wasn't too uncommon that it would kill them. Now that I think about it, I remember reading a bit about Quidditch in Sid's book. He never actually played it. He would often interfere with the games to get Ravenclaw extra points. The golden snitch used to be a small adorable gold bird called a golden snidget. It's a small fat bird with wings that let it move 360 degrees easily. They would kill the bird in almost every single game they played, whether on accident or on purpose. This led to them almost becoming extinct in a matter of a few hundred years. Even in the modern age, there were still some deaths caused by the game, mostly from people falling off their brooms. But the bludgers were usually the cause of the fall, which makes sense because that's their job. Quidditch is played with 7 people, 3 chasers, 2 beaters, 1 keeper, and 1 seeker. There are 4 balls in play, a quaffle, which is a ball similar to a rugby ball made of leather, that is the ball you have to get from the other team and throw through a hoop on the other side. Each goal you score will net you 10 points for your team. It is the job of the 3 chasers to fight over the quaffle and wrestle it from the other team, bringing it to the other team's hoops. 2 balls are called bludgers. They are large iron balls magically enchanted to chase players and knock them off their brooms. It is the beater's job is to protect their team from the balls with their bats and sometimes attack the other team with the ball. The last ball is the golden snitch, a small enchanted golden ball meant to run away from players. This is the end-all be-all of the game. Catching the golden snitch would net your team 150 points and end the game. The game does not end until the snitch is caught, leading to games that would last days and in one case, weeks. Also, catching the snitch does not guarantee your win, so you can still lose if you grab it. I notice Harry is getting more and more excited about the upcoming game the more we read. I guess to each their own. If someone wants to put their life on the line over a dumb game with literally no value whatsoever, so be it. I'm honestly not sure if I can die while in my human form, and to be completely honest, I don't want to try. Death was painful. On game day I see Harry off with Hermione and Ron. After he leaves we head into the stands together. Neville is sitting with Dean and Seamus. I'm glad he has some friends other than me. Seamus is kind of an annoying brat, but Dean is a good guy. The stands are really high up, around 20 meters tall, and they surrounded the Quidditch field, which looks like an oval-shaped football field, soccer field. The players are standing around the middle with a box in the center, the referee standing next to it. The referee, Madame Hooch, says a few words before she kicks the box in the middle of the field, releasing the snitch and bludgers. She grabs the quaffle and tosses it in the air while blowing her whistle. As she does, all the players jump on their brooms and take off, scattering into different directions. The game is rather boring and I am barely watching. I'm only really here to make sure Harry doesn't get killed by a rogue bludger, and of course to support a friend. Harry is just sitting in the air near the center looking around trying to find the snitch. Honestly, the job of the seeker seems overglorified. I hear a voice coming from the stairs. Move along. Hagrid. Hermione and Ron greet him and make room for him to sit. I just give a smile and nod as a hello. Been watchin' from me hut. He says, patting his binoculars. But it ain't the same. Ron nods, but Harry hasn't done much yet. Not gettin' hurt, that's somethin', Hagrid says. I nod in agreement. Indeed, small victories. I smirk as I turn back to the field. The snitch flies past the chaser in possession of the quaffle, causing him to drop it. Harry spots the snitch as it passes by him and immediately takes off after it. He gets close to grabbing the snitch, but not before the Slytherin Seeker catches up to him and rams him, nearly causing him to fall off his broom. This earned him a foul but saved his team from losing the game. The entire Gryffindor crowd is reeled into an uproar about the intentional foul, and I have now added Maris Flint to the list of people to punish. They should have given him a red card. Dean says with spite in his voice. I nod in agreement, but Ron looks confused. What's a red card? He asks. I forgot he doesn't know much about muggles. I honestly forgot most wizards don't know about muggles. With Auntie being married to a muggle-born, I took her knowledge for granted. It's a penalty from a muggle game called football. It means the foul was bad enough to warrant expulsion from the game, Hermione explains. Ron nods in understanding. But this isn't football, Dean. Hagrid still seems upset. They ought to change the rules. Flint coulda killed Harry there. Even the announcer seemed to be biased against Flint. Although I'm sure Maris Flint isn't very popular. He is a lot like James in his younger years, just a dick. After Gryffindor scores on the penalty shot, the game continues with Harry chasing after the snitch once again. The Slytherin beaters keep trying to hit him off the broom with the bludgers, but Harry does a good job dodging. Harry breaks free from other people and follows to snitch high into the sky. Others may not be able to see it, but with my virtual perfect vision, I can see him nearing the clouds, almost on the snitch. His hand reaches out only an inch away from grabbing it, but as he touches it, his broom violently jerks to the side. He rapidly begins to descend as his broom pulls away from him. Once he gets 50 or so feet off the ground, he gets a semblance of control of it. Although he isn't falling anymore, the broom is jerking side to side and he can't control it. The broom is being jinxed. It is exactly what Sid liked to do in his spare time at Quidditch matches. But Sid would just hold them still and let bludgers burst their heads like watermelons. Sid never wrote down the counter to the jinx though. I mean, why would he? I have to find who's doing it. I think to myself. Harry seems to have lost control of his broom, Hagrid points out, looking through his binoculars. I get to the top of the stands and start looking over at the Slytherin stands. From my vantage point, I notice Snape is chanting something under his breath while staring at Harry. I also notice Quirrell, who is standing next to Snape, is also staring at Harry without blinking. Although his mouth isn't moving, I'm still suspicious of Quirrell. If I want to end the curse, I have to get both of them to look away from Harry. Did something happen to his broom? Seamus asks, concerned. Couldn't be. It would take some powerful dark magic to jinx a broom that good. No child could do that to a Nimbus 2000, Hagrid says, honestly being rather insightful. I put my hand on Ron and Hermione's shoulders. I will be right back. Be ready to cast a levitation spell on Harry if he actually falls. It's better to break the rules and keep him alive than to have him die for such a dumb game. Ron and Hermione nod. Hermione even pulls out her wand in preparation. Chapter 25, Quidditch Fiasco, 2. I head down the stairs into the rafters, making sure no one is around. Once I confirm that the coast is clear, I jump down, catching myself with my cloak. I quickly run over to the Slytherin stands, and as soon as I'm hidden by the tarp that covers the stands, I make sure no one is around once again. Confirming that no souls are in my line of sight, I cover myself in my shroud. It softly coats me like a fine mist of black fog. I lower myself, then leap off the ground, flying straight into the stand rafters. As I am about to hit the bottom of the stands, I stop and float beneath the people. The fog around me shifts, converging into my body as I morph into my true form. The world around me begins to change. I see the souls of all the people around me through the walls as well as their vague images. In my dementor form, my sight instantly sees everything around me to a lesser extent, although it is much better than when in human form. Everything around me seems normal, but something shocks me. The souls of Quirrell is different than the last time I saw it. It is no longer all throughout grey. His soul now has a dark black section, as if a serious trauma has happened to him recently. Did the vampires really hurt him that bad? But even more shocking, it also has a dark blob attached to it, just like Harry's does. The difference is this one is a bit bigger. It is almost half the size of Quirrell's own soul. I don't have time to dwell on it. I fly directly under where Snape and Quirrell were standing and slowly put my hand through the floor of the stands. I slowly grip a leg of each Quirrell and Snape before squeezing as hard as I can. Almost instantly I feel a snap come from their legs and I quickly let go. I hear Snape yell and Quirrell squeals like a pig, so I retract my hands and nod at my job well done. I slowly lower myself as I shift back to human form using my cloak of shadows to carry myself. If I were to get caught, it will be easier to explain I can fly than to say I am an anti-animagus whose real form is a dementor. Not that would be bad. As I get down to the bottom of the stands, I calmly walk back to the Gryffindor area. When I arrive back at the top, I head back to Ron, Hermione, and Hagrid. So how is Harry doing? I ask Hermione and Ron, who both look surprised I'm back so fast. He is better now, he's getting control again, Hagrid replies. Hermione quickly stands up, grabbing my arm, pulling me off the stairs. I give her an odd look as I let her pull me to the stairway. Bold. I knew you liked me. I say, giving her a cheeky grin. What did you do to Snape? She presses me as she appears unamused and a little upset. Nothing, just made sure he would remember that he shouldn't be jinxing children. I give an innocent face as I look away, not meeting her eyes. Then what about Quirrell? She looks a bit angry this time. He was acting suspiciously too, so I had to make sure. I check her face for a second, but she looks even angrier at my response. I quickly look away again and try to change the subject. So Harry is doing pretty well, huh? I say with an awkward smile. She sighs with an exhausted look. Yeah, let's go watch, I guess. I let out a sigh of relief, but as I do I hear her speak up. Still mad at you though. She doesn't even look back when she speaks. I shrug. Can't please everybody. As we stepped out to see the field again, Harry is nearly 100 feet in the air, racing straight at the ground, chasing the snitch. Slytherin's Seeker is right on Harry's heels, trying to bump him off his broom as they quickly approached the ground. Hermione, Ron, and I run to the front of the stands to look down at the ground to see better. Slytherin's Seeker pulls up when he is merely 3 meters off the ground, while Harry is still going down. When is only a mere meter off the ground, Harry pulls up, nearly crashing his broom into the ground. Harry jumps on the back end while yanking on the front to balance himself as he slowly stands. He is standing on the broom like a surfer while reaching for the snitch. He struggles while balancing on the thin piece of wood no wider than a few centimeters. Seeing the wall approaching and that he doesn't have long, he jumps forward off of his broom. He rolls on the ground like a rag doll and it looks like has landed on top of the snitch. Harry slowly gets up but doesn't seem like he is carrying the snitch. He wobbles a bit before retching like he is about to vomit. But instead of vomiting, he coughs up the snitch, staring at the ball in his hands with disbelief. Like a champion who just won a medal, he faces the crowd and holds it high. I've got the snitch, he yells. He is a bit far away though, so I don't think anyone else can hear him. The crowd bursts into cheers, even I cheered, being influenced by the large crowd surrounding me. After the game, we all head to Hagrid hut for tea. It was Snape. Hermione and I saw him cursing your broomstick. He was muttering a jinx without breaking eye contact. Ron says, nearly yelling. Hagrid looks uncomfortable about the accusation, and why in the blazes would he do something like that? Harry speaks up. Finally, he tried to get past that 3-headed dog during Halloween. It bit him. I think he was trying to steal something. Hagrid drops his tea in shock. How did you know about Fluffy? Fluffy? Damn thing nearly bit my head off. I speak up, a bit offended by the plushy name. Well, he is mine, bought him from a Greek gentleman I met in the pub last year. I let Dumbledore use him to defend the S. Yes. Harry insistently pushed for Hagrid's words. Hagrid shakes his head as he cleans up tea. Don't ask any more, and stay away from that room, it is top secret. But Snape is trying to steal it. Ron insists. Or Quirrell, I say, causing Hermione to roll her eyes and everyone to look at me funny. Fuck 'em, I'm not wrong. I justify to myself as I raise my nose to them. Rubbish, they are both Hogwarts teachers and would never do nothing of the sort. So why did he try and kill Harry then? I know what a jinx is when I see one. Hagrid. His eyes never left Harry and he was chanting the entire time. I've read about them in the library to prepare for defense against the dark arts. Hermione speaks up with vindication in her voice. And I'm telling you, you're wrong. I don't know why Harry's broom was acting up, but Snape wouldn't try to kill a student like that. Now listen to me, all of yet, you're meddling in things that don't concern yet. Forget about that dog, and forget what it's garden. That is between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Damn it, Hagrid rants at us. The Nicholas Flamel. It's my turn to be shocked. Oh no, I shouldn't ha' told you that, I really shouldn't ha' told ya that. Hagrid looks mad at himself as he paces away from us. Who is Nicholas Flamel? Ron and Harry look confused. So does Hermione, Hermione, we read about him last week, how did you forget? She looks embarrassed as I mention it. So who is he? Harry asks. He is the first man to ever obtain true immortality. But at a nasty cost, he is basically no different from a walking corpse. He created the Philosopher's Stone, which can do many things, but the most impressive is creating an immortality potion. Hermione answers, having remembered the text. Hagrid looks pale. You guys shouldn't know about that. So that's what the dog is guarding. Ron spoke up this time. I did it again, Hagrid says while hitting his head with his palms, now even angrier at himself. Even if one wanted to steal it, they couldn't, not with Dumbledore here. He is the strongest wizard in the world. Even stronger than you know who. Hagrid adds. At this, we all nod. With Dumbledore here, there is no way someone could take the stone. I can tell Dumbledore, I tell them all. They nod, they know I've spoken to him before and he seems to favor me. So I'm at the very least sure he will listen to my thoughts on the situation. Let's head back, we don't want to be in past curfew, I say. Hermione looks at the clock and sees there are only 5 minutes till curfew. She pushes us out of the hut and we start running. As we are leaving, I can hear a sigh of relief come out of Hagrid. Chapter 26, A Second with Dumbledore. The following morning I am awoken by a pillow pelting me in the face over and over. Having instantly woken up, I reach out and grab the pillow without looking at who it is. With an annoyed grunt, I yank the pillow hard. I hear a girl yelp as someone falls on my lower body. Ow! I rub my side in pain as the person fell on my hip. I open my eyes to see Hermione has fallen on top of me. Her elbow had gone into my side when she tried to soften her fall. She looks up at me like a scared rabbit as she pushes off of me to stand back up. Sorry, she mutters with a scarlet red face. I roll over and sit up. It's fine, why are you in the boys' dorms, and why so early? She seems to remember her original purpose as anger lights up her eyes. Is it true you broke one of Quirrell and Snape's legs? I am a bit flustered by her gaze and pull back a bit. Yes. I tentatively admit. She smacks the top of my head like a misbehaved dog. What were you thinking? If someone saw you, you would have been expelled. And don't you think breaking their legs was a bit, you know, excessive? I laugh while rubbing my head where she hit it. It's fine, Dumbledore wouldn't expel me for protecting Harry. And a broken leg is a small price for hurting someone I call a friend. Hermione shakes her head while holding the bridge of her nose. Whatever will I do with you? I sit there in silence as she looks like she is thinking. I honestly don't care how upset she gets. Although it does feel a bit good knowing my friend is upset for my sake. Okay, I'll forgive you this time, but do try not to do anything that will get you, or I expelled again, please. She finally speaks up with a pleading tone. I give a thumbs up. Well, thanks, I guess. I try and shrug it off with a smile. During our conversation, it seems Ron heard us because he sits up slowly, obviously still dead tired. He looks at Hermione, who is standing next to my bed, then at me and back again. A wide grin slowly begins to form on Ron's face. His smile seems to say, I know what's going on. He gives me a thumbs up. Nice. He slurs the word a bit, still half asleep. Ugh. Hermione throws the pillow at Ron, hitting him dead in the face, knocking him back into his bed. She stalks away with a blushed face and a huff. She had just left while leaving me awake 2 hours before breakfast even starts. What to do now? Sleep, obviously. After breakfast, I talk to McGonagall and get a meeting set with Dumbledore. As I make my way to Dumbledore's office behind McGonagall, I am thinking about what I should say. Or rather how much I should mention, as I would like to see Dumbledore's past, but I have a feeling he would be too hard to read without permission. McGonagall walks up to the gargoyle password. Lemon drop soup. As McGonagall speaks, the gargoyle, just like last time, slides and moves out of the way, revealing the entrance. She looks back at me and gives me a gesture to stay, then walks in. As her figure disappears, the gargoyle closes behind her. I wonder what they talk about when So goes in like that. I wonder as I lean against the stone wall. Barely even a full minute passes before she walks out. All right, the headmaster will see you now, she says with a courteous nod of her head. I give her a nod as a reply and walk in just like last time. As I walk in, the room is exactly the same as it used to be, except this time the Phoenix looks older, like an entire lifetime has passed. Dumbledore is sitting at his desk with a large book in front of him and a crystal ball on the edge of his desk. Dumbledore smiles as he sees me and gestures for me to sit at the chair across from him. So Mr. Black, what is it you came for today? He asks with his usual half smile. I take a moment to build suspense like a movie before I speak. I wanted to talk about the Philosopher's Stone. I say my words slowly to let the shock set in. He looks very surprised for a moment but quickly returns to normal as if he heard nothing. I see, so you know about that, do you? I give a chuckle. Hagrid isn't the best keeper of secrets. Thinking back at Hagrid's slip, I laugh a bit more. Dumbledore rubs his temples. And what is it you would like to inquire about it? This is not an inquiry, just wanted to tell you Harry, Ron, and Hermione are all convinced that Snape is trying to steal it, I say plainly. Oh, and what do you think? He curiously asks. Personally? I think it is Quirrell. I refuse to believe someone who was so dead set on getting stronger got traumatized by some vampires. Not only that, isn't he just like, super suspicious all the time? I lean forward to emphasize my words before falling back in my chain and giving a shrug. He gives me an odd grin before he lets out a hearty laugh. Don't worry, Mr. Black, even if one of the teachers is trying to steal it, no such thing could happen while I walk these grounds. I nod in agreement. No one would dare steal from the home of the most powerful wizard in the world while he was still in the home. Not even Voldemort would be stupid enough to try it. It's practically suicide. One thing I have to confirm with you, Mr. Black. The Ministry is asking how you got those memories from your father. The Black family Pensieve had the files on record. Our file rack is enchanted to retrieve the owner's memories upon death. Father's were still intact since he was never officially disowned from the family, only struck from the tree. I had this excuse pre-planned. The Black family files were indeed real, but they destroyed Sirius's when he left the house. I'm guessing they didn't care when he died. Also, I'm not sure if they took memories upon death, I just know they are enchanted. That is what I assumed was the case, but it is better that I hear it from your own mouth. You are free to leave, Mr. Black. He sounds rather dismissive, as if I didn't really need a good reason anyway. As I'm about to leave, I look at his desk and notice the book he is reading is Divination and its Practicality. Studying divination, Headmaster? Taking a chance, I ask. He gives a nod. Indeed, I am studying whether or not it is practical to follow a prophecy or if it is just hot air. He gestures his hand at the crystal ball. I was actually born with the talent of divination, rather I can see someone's past. I don't get to see what I want, but it is a useful talent nonetheless. Would you mind if I took a peek into your past? My heart is beating a bit fast. I don't want to accidentally make him angry. But this would be a great opportunity. He laughs a bit. Oh, a seer? Why would you want to look at my past? There are thousands of books written about my successes, and my failures. He speaks a bit self-mockingly. I would like to see it firsthand, a piece of the life of the most powerful wizard alive. I insist, still a bit nervous. He scratches his long beard. I thank you for the interest. He pauses for a moment as he thinks, fine, as long as you do not go digging. He gives me a smirk at his words. I give a nod with a gulp. Just stick out your hand. He does as I say. I hold out my hand for him to grab. He understands and takes my hand while staring straight into his third eye. My consciousness feels memories flooding it, and unlike Harry or Antidromeda, there is massive pressure on me as I make contact with his soul. I feel like a slave standing before a king. The weight is terrifying. Chapter 27, Burden of an Old Soul. Unlike my initial plan, I'm not able to look around his memories or traumas. I could only watch what was set in front of me. It was a heavy memory, maybe the most painful memory I have ever seen so far. Or at least the one that has impacted me the most. Memory of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. Inside an old villa-style house sat a fireplace with two rocking chairs resting a few feet away from each other. On one chair there was a young man with dark brown hair and a handsome face. He was holding a scarf only halfway done. He was currently knitting it. It was easy to tell he wasn't proficient, as his weave wasn't tightly packed and it was a bit misshapen. On the other chair was a beautiful young girl who only looked to be around 12, she too was knitting. She was nearly through making a pair of socks. They were grey, woven out of fluffy wool. These two were Albus and his younger sister Ariana Dumbledore. Thank you for learning knitting, big brother, Ariana said with a meek voice. She only mutters her words as she keeps her head down. A small smile graced Albus's lips, not looking up from the half-complete scarf. Don't think much of it, I enjoy spending my time with you. Ariana flinches at his words. I know that's not true, brother, I know you would rather be at Hogwarts right now, learning more about magic. She had tears threatening to fall. Albus put down the scarf and rested his hand on her shoulder. Don't say that, Ariana, I will always find time for you, even if I become the busiest person in the world. Despite the words he spoke, he knew she was right. He would much prefer to be at Hogwarts, but he would never let his sister know. I wish I was normal, then I could join you at Hogwarts. I wouldn't be locked in this house like a caged bird. Brother, what's wrong with me? She was bawling at this point, tears falling onto the freshly knitted pair of socks. Albus got up and hugged his sister as she cried and spoke softly. Nothing is wrong with you, Ariana, you are perfect. I promise you, I will find a way to make you better, then you can leave this house and go anywhere you please. He spoke his words solemnly, meaning every single word he spoke. She wrapped her arms around his neck. Thank you, big brother. After crying for a minute or two, they separated from their hug and Ariana held out the socks in front of herself. She gave a genuine smile that, to Albus, made her the prettiest little sister in existence. Here, I finished them, sorry I haven't learned anything better than socks yet. She looked pitiful, her eyes were puffy red while she was holding out the socks like a frightened rabbit. Afraid that her brother wouldn't like her simple gift. Albus took the socks and gave her a soft kiss on the forehead. Socks are the best gift you could give me, make sure to make some more. Albus has a wide smile on his face, but hidden behind it was the sadness he felt for his sister. Deep inside he felt utter resentment. Not for his sister, but for himself. Why did he feel this way? Why did he feel that his sister was such a burden? Why couldn't he be the brother she deserved? Why was he so awful? He was one of the most talented students to go through Hogwarts in hundreds of years, no, the most talented, and yet there was nothing he could do to help his sister. With all the talent in the world, he still couldn't save her with his own hands. The worst part was he couldn't even seek help for his sister's strife since it would only make it worse. Soren's POV. The warmth I felt from this memory pushed aside the prejudice I had previously about Dumbledore. The care he held for his sister felt more real than anything I had thought possible from only a memory. Had I not been fully conscious in the memory, I may have been swept up in the memory by the sheer passion. The self-loathing he felt that day is something I felt a lot inside the darkness. My inability to protect Little Black, my inability to save myself, the weakness. But no matter how warm it was, the memory just dripped with sadness to me. It was as if he is trying not to let himself be happy with the memories of his sister. It feels as though he wants to punish himself with her memory. The sheer strength of his soul mixed with how powerful his feelings are making me feel threatened. If the most powerful wizard in the world can only feel like this, then what are my chances to achieve true happiness? I have to be stronger. Memory of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. In the field behind the Dumbledore household. 3 people are standing in a circle. One was Albus, he looked to be around 19 at this time. Then there was Aberforth, Albus's brother, whom he often would argue with. Lastly was a handsome young man with dirty blonde hair, Gellert Grindelwald. Albus's first and only love. You stay away from my brother. Filling his head with your delusions of conquering the Muggleborn, you disgust me. Aberforth spat his words toward Grindelwald. You are nothing more than a boy who lives in his older brother's shadow. Maybe it is jealousy that drives you? Upset that I stole your big brother from you. Grindelwald had a smug grin as he spoke. Aberforth grit his teeth. You are just manipulating my brother, you know you are not powerful enough to achieve your dreams yourself. You may be talented, but next to my brother you are nothing but a half-baked wizard, and a poor excuse for a man. Albus doesn't want to get involved, the man he held deep feelings for on one side and his younger brother on the other. Taking a side would only serve to escalate the situation. They both held valid points, and with Grindelwald's plans, he would be able to save Ariana. A world where she doesn't have to live in fear. Grindelwald laughed a bit. And so what if I am manipulating him? How would that have anything to do with you? You will always just be an ant standing on the shoulder of a giant. Pathetic. Aberforth turned to Albus. Are you fine with this? Do you really think conquering the Muggleborn will just instantly fix all the problems in the wizarding world? Albus hardened himself and spoke up. I don't know, but I can make a better world for Ariana. I know that. Aberforth was taken aback by this answer and Grindelwald laughed at it. You dare bring Ariana into this? Aberforth's shock quickly turned to anger. So that's why you are here? To get in our way. Grindelwald spoke as he pulled out his wand. Aberforth backed up a bit and pulled out his wand as well. Yes, it is. I will not let you commit atrocities in the name of our baby sister. Dumbledore backed away as well, pulling out his wand. Stop this, it can be solved without violence. Grindelwald just smiles and fires a spell at Aberforth. Aberforth deflects it and a small explosion happens in the direction he deflected. They begin firing spells back and forth, causing explosions all around. Albus didn't join in since he didn't want to injure either of them. Grindelwald was at an obvious advantage the whole time, he was simply a better wizard, not to mention older. As Albus was tempted to help his brother, he noticed, Grindelwald's wand started glowing green, he was using the killing curse. Stop! Albus yelled as he sent a garden gnome between, blocking the spell and saving Aberforth's life. Having been saved by his brother, Aberforth gritted his teeth. Don't pretend to be so self-righteous. Albus sighed as he started flinging spells as well. At first he was sending out Stupefy, but he realized both Aberforth and Grindelwald were only using the killing curse. Influenced by his anger, he started using it as well. The killing curses began deflecting off of each other as each one tried their best to avoid the green beams of light. Blinding flashes of light struck the ground around them as the fight became messy. Stop fighting! Ariana's voice cut through the noise of the fight. No one stopped flinging spells but Albus, who turned his head. Ariana, go back in the house. No. I will help you, she said as a heavy black smog substance started erupting from her body. Albus flung one last spell at Grindelwald as he turned to Ariana to try and calm her down. As he turned, he saw a spell had been deflected by Grindelwald and hit Ariana before she could transform. She fell to the grass lifeless, the black substance coming from her body vanished as if it never existed. No! Aberforth and Albus both yelled at the same time, running over to her body. Grindelwald simply backed away, looking a bit shaken himself. If Dumbledore wished to kill him, he probably could. Albus got to her body first and kneeled on the ground next to her. He grabbed her into his arms, her face was already pale. He ran his hand over her cheek and through her hair, she was already starting to get cold. It's for the greater good. Grindelwald's words faded behind Dumbledore as he operated away. Dumbledore seemed oblivious as he gripped his baby sister tightly and hugged her cold body, tears were running down his face. A heart-wrenching scream left his lips as he began to shake violently. I could feel his heart tightening, throat clenching, and his eyes burning. He kneeled there for a while before he let out in a small whimper. Ariana. Aberforth stood over him with clenched fists, tears running down his face, he looked furious. The memory began to fade, as it did. Albus could be heard in a sobbing tone, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Ariana. Please, forgive me. Chapter 28, Obscurials. As I am forced out of the dreamlike state, my eyes are closed but I can feel tears are falling. The feelings Dumbledore had felt translated unto me. My chest feels heavy as if a ton of bricks are resting above my heart. I open my eyes to see Dumbledore staring at me with a face of stone, with no emotion visible. But I knew, he was hurt, scarred deeply by his past. As I stare into his emotionless eyes, I know, he knows what I saw. I know that he feels this pain as well. I also know that his pain is far worse than mine. Why, your sister, she was. I finally managed to stutter out a few words. Dumbledore nods. She was what is known as an obscurial. Someone born with magic but unable to use it due to trauma or natural deformity. I've never heard of such a thing, I speak with a low tone, trying to control my emotions. Even in the back of my mind, I feel the darkness is resting, too scared to move forward. As you shouldn't have, the Ministry has been hiding their existence for as long as they were known. They capture children they think are obscurials and either trap them for testing or outright kill them. Though recently I haven't heard of any being found. Dumbledore's stone face quivers a bit at the topic. Why? Why would the Ministry do such a horrific thing? My tears are finally clearing up. Peace? Safety perhaps? Fear of the unknown can be a powerful driving force. Obscurials' magic is powerful, although it is not practically useful. It instead manifests itself in the form of a black gaseous beast that kills indiscriminately. The children afflicted by this curse will certainly die young, never making it to their 10th year. Dumbledore turns away from me, staring at a small portrait of his sister sitting at the corner of his desk. But your sister was nearly a woman in your memory. How did she live so long? My sister was under my care. Obscurials are often left to do as they please. This eventually leads to an outburst of their curse. These outbursts break down the body and lead to an early death. My sister was taken care of like a princess. He lets out a small laugh as a tear falls to his cheek. Finally, the stone wall crumbled a bit. At the time it felt really frustrating, needing to pamper my sister all the time. I honestly felt a sliver of hatred for her back then. But now I would give anything to go back and fix my mistake, and I would try my best to find a cure even if it was for nothing. His hands are balled into fists as he speaks with a hoarse voice. Have you found it? A cure? I ask a bit hopeful. He had been searching for nearly 100 years at this point, right? He gives a solemn no before he takes a deep breath. There is no cure, the obscurials, the beast is birthed in the soul. There is no living wizard capable of manipulating a soul well enough to remove the beast. All known attempts have resulted in the removal of the obscurials, but it leaves behind a soulless husk of the child. Just like dementors, I add to his words in my mind. I am the exception, but that is what most dementors do. Could I do it? I begin to think to myself, falling deep in thought. My ability to manipulate souls should be no worse than Sid's was, right? Noticing my silence, Dumbledore stands. I think it is time you leave, young Soren. He gestures a hand toward the door. I snap out of my thoughts and give a nod. Thank you, Dumbledore. I turn and start walking away. He sits back in his chair. As I reach the door, I stop and without turning I ask. Do you still do it? I ask. Do what, young Black? Knitting. He gives a small chuckle. Indeed, I still have the supplies in my desk. I give a nod and smile. I feel a bit of satisfaction as I walk away. I don't know why, but I'm happy he still knits. I quickly get back to my usual school life after that incident, spending every day with Harry, Ron, and Neville. The only difference is that from then Snape and Quirrell's classes are cancelled for the following week. Well, that, and Hermione was avoiding me. I don't want to push the issue, so I let her be mad and gave her some space. When Christmas times rolled around, I got a letter from Auntie Dromeda that Nymphadora had passed her entry classes and would receive an official order to study under in the upcoming year. So we would be having an additional celebration along with Christmas. I also noticed Scabbers had started to go missing, more and more often. I guess it's natural that he is hiding from me since I torture him on a near daily basis. Everything I can think of short of the Cruciatus curse, not because I'm going easy on him, but it leaves a trail and many objects can sense the use of unforgivable curses. When I head back for Christmas break, I decide to leave early to surprise Auntie. I requested early leave by 3 days and immediately got approved. Perks of being on good terms with the headmaster. That, and it would be odd if I didn't get approved considering my nearly straight O's. I have 3 O+S in potions, defense against the dark arts, and charms, while I have an E in transfiguration, but I think McGonagall just doesn't like me still. After saying my goodbyes, I walk onto the Hogwarts bridge, and as soon as I pass the disapparition barrier I vanish. I am not actually going home right now. I have errands to run first. I appear in front of the leaky cauldron on the Diagon Alley side. It's still early in the morning, so there aren't many people walking around. I am here to get presents, for everyone. I start off at Wiseacre's Wizarding Equipment since they have a lot of oddities, and just as expected I hit the jackpot. They seem to have something for everyone. I got lucky and found an Eastern-style magic pacifying charm for Harry. All you have to do is slip it in someone's pocket and it makes them as kind as a kitten as long as it is near. I got it to help him handle his aunt and uncle. For Sis Dora, I got a pair of apparition coins that would let me instantly apparate to her if she ever found herself in a pinch. Now I just have to convince her it is a good idea to let an 11-year-old kid protect her. For Neville, I got a new Remembrall, since his last one was cracked and didn't work properly anymore. I hope he doesn't mind getting the same gift just from another person. Though I'm sure he will be happy no matter what I get him. For Ron, I got a chess set since I know he liked playing with Harry. I don't really like chess since I'm not a very strategic thinker. I'm a bit dumb. It's a simple chess set since the fancy ones are like 100 galleons. Totally not worth it. I was also tempted to get him a wand, but I know he won't accept it. Maybe next year? I went to Flourish and Blots after to get a book for Hermione. The one I got this time was called The Art of Apparition since I know she wants to learn it earlier than the curriculum teaches. I could probably teach her, but I don't want to spill any secrets, even to friends. Then I went to Madame Malkin's Robes for All Occasions to get a specially made robe for Auntie. It was closer to a dress than a robe really. For Uncle Ted I got him a cat that was part Neasel. It was probably mostly Neasel since it was pretty large. I hope that it is some additional protection, seeing as I don't trust the Dementor I placed to protect him. I also got candy and knickknacks for my extended friend group. I even got Draco a wig as a joke. I stuffed all the new presents into my bag except the cat, had to carry that one. It is a good thing the cat was well behaved and sat on my shoulder. Sin also seemed to be enjoying petting it. After leaving the alley with my haul, I apparat home to surprise my family. Chapter 29, Christmas Morning. As I arrived in front of the house with all my newly bought stuff in tow, I feel a wave of nostalgia wash over me. It has only been a few months since I left, but having a home is a great feeling. A large smile spreads on my face as I take a whiff of the familiar smells. I calmly walk up to the front door and slowly open it. Inside, Auntie and Uncle are busy making food in the kitchen. They both turn to me, noticing someone has opened the door. "Ah, Soren, you're back." Uncle Ted smiles at me, not in the least bit shocked. Auntie on the other hand comes running over and embraces me, forgetting about the food on the burner. I return her hug with a tight squeeze. "I'm back, Auntie Dromeda." She pulls back a bit and puts her hands on my shoulders, looking into my eyes. Her eyes are a bit watery, she must have really missed me. But her expression quickly changes as if remembering something. "Fuck." I quickly question myself. "Is it true you fought a troll by yourself?" She looks at me with a glare. "Crap, how did she find out?" My smile falls as I can feel sweat collecting on my forehead. There were extenuating circumstances, Auntie, I had to." Trying my best to give an innocent smile. She gives a smack to the side of my head, not very hard, far from that man's. "You could have been killed, what were you thinking?" She looks more sad than angry now. I'm starting to feel a bit bad for making her upset. I had to save my friends, they don't know any offensive magic, so I decided I would hold it off till a teacher came. I rub the back of my head trying to smile, but my smile quickly becomes less confident. "You know offensive magic? Who taught you that?" "Sis Dora." "Don't blame her, Auntie, she taught me because I asked her to." She shakes her head while pinching the bridge of her nose. "I'll have a chat with her when she gets home. Don't mention that I told you, okay?" I give begging eyes. She rolls her eyes before sighing. "Now, why do you have a cat resting on your shoulder?" "Oh yeah. Uncle, I got you a pet for Christmas," I say, peeking past Auntie. I grab the cat and hold it up a bit so he can see. The cat is very well behaved and just allows me to hold it. Uncle takes the food off the burner and puts a small towelette over his shoulder. "That's great, but Christmas isn't for another week, is it fine giving it right now?" "Yeah, I don't think I could hide a cat from you for a week anyway." I take the cat and hand it over to Uncle Ted. He takes it from my hands with a soft smile. The cat struggles a bit trying to hold onto my shirt, but as soon as it gets into Uncle's arms it curls back up and starts to purr. It seems the cat isn't fussy when it is comfortable, probably since it is smart enough to understand the circumstances to an extent. "You know, when I was younger I really wanted a cat, but my mother was allergic." "Thank you, Soren." He gives a wide smile. "The cat is a bit special, it's part Neasel, so it is really smart, as smart as a kid I would say. Not to mention as strong as a boar," I say excitedly, since it seems he likes his present. He holds the cat high into the air looking at it. "Is that true? Are you a smart boy?" The cat gives a meow and holds its head high proudly. Uncle chuckles at the cat's proud look. Auntie smiles as she stands up. "Dinner should be ready soon, put your stuff away and sit down at the table." I nod and head off to my room before Auntie finds any more reason to scold me. The week went by fast to Christmas. I got to remember how nice it is to be home. Although Hogwarts is nice, learning new things and hanging out with friends, being able to listen to Auntie Dromeda and Sis Dora bicker all day is the best. Christmas morning Sis Dora woke me up early. "Get up, sleepyhead, we got to open our presents." I wake up to Sis Dora with a broad smile and her hair is tied up with a mix of green and red. We head downstairs to see Uncle Ted drinking coffee with his cat on his lap. He has named the cat Arthur, by the way. He is sitting on a love seat next to the Christmas tree while Auntie Dromeda is making breakfast in the kitchen. Noticing us come down the stairs, Uncle Ted smiles. "Hurry up and open your presents, then we can eat breakfast together." The tree is near the center of the living room with 6 or 7 presents sitting around it. All of the boxes around the tree are rather small. "Edward, be a dear and set the table, please," Auntie Dromeda asks while walking towards the living room. "Why me? Have the kids do it." He lets out a small complaint but starts to get up nonetheless. "You already got your Christmas presents, so no complaining." Uncle Ted just grunted at this and walked towards the kitchen. "Of course, anything for you, dear." He kisses her cheek as he passes her. I ignore them as I observe the presents. I walk to the tree and look at the first present. "Sis, this one is yours." I hand it to her and find the ones for Auntie as well and give them over. Auntie got 2, Sis only got 1 and I had a whopping 4. Considering I have never gotten a present before, this was like a heaven-shaking event. I honestly think I might cry. I notice they aren't opening their presents yet and are just staring at me. Not wanting to make them wait, I start to open the first one. It's from Auntie Dromeda and that's it. Honestly, I'm surprised Uncle Ted didn't just slap his name on it as well. It's obvious why once I open the box, inside is just a mirror the size of a palm sitting there. I look up at Andromeda and she pulls out a matching mirror and smiles at me. I didn't expect her to get me a two-way mirror, they aren't that rare, they are pretty expensive, and Andromeda isn't exactly rich. I get up ready to hug her but she gestures for me to sit. You can thank me when you open them all. She has a big smile, seemingly proud of herself. So I sit back down and start opening the next one. This one is labeled from Andromeda and Uncle Ted. This box is slightly wider. As I unwrap it I see it's a board game. It's one that I actually know, Wizard's Chess. I have never actually played chess, not really had a chance you know. But I do know the general rules and stuff, so it looks like I'll have something to do while bored in the dorms. Thanks, Andromeda, I say with a big smile. She just nods with a smile. Thanks, Uncle Ted. I say loudly into the kitchen. From the kitchen, I hear him yell, not a problem my boy. Auntie rolls her eyes at his overzealous yell and Sis gives a small chuckle. The third one is a small box, it's just labeled from Uncle Ted. As I unwrap it I see it is just a plain white box under the wrapping. In the box is a wristwatch, leather strap with a copper color in the clock. It's obviously a bit smaller than a normal-sized one, like it was made a young man. As I put it on I say loudly into the kitchen, thanks for the watch, Uncle Ted. I hear him yell from the dining room with an over-enthusiastic voice, you are quite welcome. Hope you don't mind a Muggle item. It's actually quite an expensive item in Muggle money, so I do hope you enjoy it. I laugh a bit. I don't mind at all, it's perfect. Arthur seems to not like our yell since he stretches and heads off in the direction of the dining room, probably expecting food. Seeing the last present is from Sis I get up and give Auntie a big hug. Thank you, it means a lot. Feeling that I'm getting emotional she hugs me tight. I'm glad you like your presents. Sis Dora chimes in, how come I never got a two-way mirror? Andromeda lets go of me as she rolls her eyes at her daughter. Well, I never had to worry about you fighting a troll when you were 11. She glares at me. I rub the back of my head with a wry smile. Sis laughs and urges, hurry up and open my present, I'm sure you'll like it. I sit back down and grab the present from her. It is a longer rectangle box. I open the box and inside is a quill pen, which makes me a bit confused. There is a piece of paper below it with what looks like a charm written on it. What is it? I ask, a bit confused. It's a spell-checking quill, it's enchanted to never misspell a word ever. The paper below has the charm you need to cast on it every so often to make sure it doesn't stop working. She holds her nose up as she looks proud of her gift. Her hair even shifts into a royal gold color, reflecting her feelings. I don't think I really need it, I never misspell words, I'm actually pretty well read, I say with a confident grin. She rolls her eyes, how well read can an 11-year-old be? I shrug, I guess you're right. I get up and give her a big hug as well. Thank you, sis. She hugs me back and asks, so where is my gift? I didn't see your name on this gift. I smile, it's a secret, I'll give it to you after breakfast. Oh, suspicious, suspicious indeed. Alright, but it better be good. I look over at Andromeda, hurry up and open my present, I want to see if you like it. I'm pretty excited to see her reactions, I think she will like it. Seeing me excited she smiles and grabs my present and unwraps it. From the box, she pulls out a long robe-like dress with the pattern of stars. It's a star map, I say, pointing to a place on the left chest area. This is the Andromeda Galaxy here. I can see tears starting to well up in her eyes. Her tears make me believe I did a good job picking the present. Do you like it? I ask while walking up to her, already knowing the answer. Before I can react she grabs me into a tight hug. She starts to cry. God, I'm so glad you were born and found your way to us. These words make me start to tear up as well. This family is the only reason I have been glad to have been born. All of my life up until now I had wished I had never been born, I had wished I could just erase my existence. But since being in this house I have been happy to be alive. As we are hugging I hear Uncle Ted, ahem, sorry to interrupt your heartfelt moment, but the food is done and set out, so could you hurry up with the presents so we can eat? I start to laugh at his words, but Auntie gives him a death glare. He just smiles and slowly backs up into the dining room and goes to feed Arthur. When we went back to opening presents, Auntie got an enchanted makeup kit from Uncle and Sis, while Sis Dora got a faux glass from Auntie and Uncle. Apparently, faux glass shows a reflection of your enemies, the closer they are to you the more clear their figure appears. Chapter 30, Seeker Coins. After we ate breakfast I went back to my room and prepared the presents for my other friends. Shy got a bit of a workout going to and from people's houses for the entire afternoon. After getting the presents out, I decided I should go and give Sis her present. I knock on the door to hear music coming through the door. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. She doesn't open the door, so I knock louder. After another few seconds, the music stops and she finally opens the door. So you finally came to give me my Christmas present. She has a big grin as she rests against the door frame. Yeah, but first, why aren't you listening to Christmas music on Christmas? I ask, inexplicably confused. She ponders for a second, because I've never really liked the idea of Santa Claus, and Christmas music doesn't really do it for me. To each their own, I guess. Alright, to give you your present we have to go into the backfield. I don't want Auntie to find out. I check the hall, then lean over to peer down the stairs, making sure Auntie isn't around. Oh, still so secretive, but do we have to go outside? It's still snowing. She pouts a bit in a childish manner. Yeah, there isn't enough room in here. Is my present that big? No, but I have to show you something as well. Her brows raise at my words. Is it about how you know reducto? Because I know damned well I didn't teach you it. You heard about that? I shrink back a little. Yup, heard about it for about an hour from Mom. Caught it in between her ranting about how irresponsible I am and how bad of an influence I am. She gives me a glare. Sorry sis. I put my head down. But you know how well it would have gone over if I told Auntie I practiced offensive magic by myself without permission. She sighs and rolls her eyes. It's fine, let me go get my jacket. She leaves the door open as she goes back into her room to get her jacket from the wardrobe. I let out a sigh of relief seeing that she isn't mad. I pat my pocket to make sure I have the coins in my pocket. As we make our way out back, I can see Sis is getting more and more curious about her present. Once we are around 200 feet away from the house, I stopped and turned to Sis Dora. I see her hair has now turned a bluish-white like the snow surrounding us. She raises an eyebrow at my sudden stop. I reach into my pocket and walk up to her as I pull out the coins. She looks at the coins confused. Enchanted coins. I clear my throat to be more precise. They are called Seeker's coins. They are a pair. Just hold onto it tightly and say my name and I'll know where you are. It is meant to be a safety net in case you get hurt on the job. You graduate to be an apprentice auror soon and I want to make sure you are safe. My face is a bit red as I am speaking. She has a big funny grin on her face until she seems to realize something. How is this a safety net if it just tells you where I am? I realize I got ahead of myself. Oh, because I can do this. I take out my wand and apparate a few feet away. When I reappear, I see her eyes have gone wide and her mouth is hanging open in awe. Sis? I ask apprehensively. How do you know apparition? It isn't taught until 6th year and even then I'm not even that good at it. You didn't even make a breeze. She is basically yelling at this point. She holds her head as she begins to mutter. My 3 years of hard work were for nothing. I rub the back of my head. I kind of just felt like I could do it, so I tried and it worked first try. That's how a lot of magic is for me, except for transfiguration. I for some reason have a bad imagination. That is just downright cheating. It took me weeks to be able to even apparate a few feet. Not to mention to be able to do it safely. She genuinely seems upset. I just keep my wry smile and continue, and as to why it would be a safety net is because of this. I point my wand towards a tree where the field and forest meet 30 feet away. Conf Ringo, a ball of fire spews out of the end of my wand in a straight line at the tree. It hits the tree and the flames creep up the trunk, splintering the wood as the flames travel. In only a second the once 15-foot tree is a pile of wood chunks and the path leading to the tree is clear of snow. Again Sis is starting wide-eyed, baffled at what just happened. As if to push the point, I cast again reducto. A red beam flies from my wand, striking the charred just above my first hit. From the point it hits, the tree trunk is reduced to a fine mist of wood about 5 feet down to the ground and well up into its branches. With a soft thud, the branches fall on the snow-covered ground. After a second or two she snaps out of it and mumbles, "Maybe you are the next Dark Lord." Hey, that isn't even a good joke, I say, exasperated, looking at her with a bit of concern. She laughs at my reaction. I'm kidding. She walks up to me and gives me a hug. Thank you, for being worried about me. She grabs one of the Seeker coins from my hand. If I get into trouble I'll think about it. She gives me a wink and starts walking back towards the house. I give a sigh of relief that it went well. I hear her yell from in front of me, and don't tell Mom you can apparate, she will kill you. Her concern makes me smile. I look around and reminisce in my memories. This is where Sis first taught me Incendio just a few months ago. Thinking about that, I remember the article talking about me, the one calling me the next Dark Lord. It mentions in great detail me practicing magic right here before going to Hogwarts. Rita Skeeter, the woman who wrote that article, how could she possibly know Sis and I were practicing out here? I mean, it's not hidden, but we aren't inside of any other houses. On a whim I decide to close my eyes and look for souls, just to make sure no one is spying on us. With virtually no expectations I focus on my enhanced vision, but I'm quickly shocked. There is a moderate-sized pure white human soul not even 40 feet away from me in the forest. But the forest isn't very dense. I would for sure see someone there. Especially since my eyesight should be near the limit of a normal human. I open my eyes once again and walk in the direction I saw the soul. It doesn't move, as if it knows I can't find it. It is wrong. As I enter the forest I look around and see absolutely no one. I am currently standing in front of the tree I saw them at, so I close my eyes and check again. They are less than a foot in front of me. I open my eyes, but all I see is a tree, a very normal tree. I closely scan the tree until I notice a beetle is sitting on it. A beetle, in winter? I pick it up, it struggles, but I don't let it go. Rita Skeeter. Really? On Christmas Day? It stops struggling, as if confirming my suspicion. Wow, how lucky of you to be an insect animagus and a journalist. Man, I really don't know what to do with you. I don't want to kill you since I'm not really into killing innocent people. I say to myself, conflicted as to what to do. How about this? I won't let anyone know you are an unregistered animagus. In return, you can't make up stories saying I'm the next Dark Lord. Deal. The beetle buzzes as if accepting the offer. I nod, and as I'm about to let go I say, if I see an article about me I'll feed you to my owl. I let her go and start walking back towards the house. The beetle quietly sits on the tree where I left it with its head looking up at me. I ignore it as it's ruining my festive mood. Chapter 31, Additional Presents. As I walked into my room I see a stack of presents with Shy perched on top of the stack. Shy makes a small sound as he sees me enter the room, so he flies off the stack onto the wardrobe. I smile as it is as if he was declaring that his job is finished. The stack has a few wrapped gifts and letters attached to them. Sitting next to the stack are some candy and notes, from Dean, Seamus, and Daphne Greengrass. I didn't get Daphne anything since I didn't expect her to get me anything. Now I feel a bit bad. I suppose it's a thank you for helping her out in potions a few times. It's even worse when you learn I only partnered with her because everyone else I know already had partners. But even still, now that she has extended a hand, I will consider her a friend. I pick up the first present on the stack. As I pick it up I can tell it's just a wrapped book. I laugh a bit. This person obviously doesn't wrap gifts often. I still make sure to read the letter attached first before opening it. From Professor Minerva McGonagall. Dear Soren Black. It has been brought to my attention by Headmaster Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, that I have been partial toward you. This was brought about by my priorly held biases held towards your late father, which have, as of recently, have been proven misinformed. That is why, through this letter, I wish to extend my sincerest apology, and would like to offer a book that will better help you advance in my class. I hope you study well and have a joyous Christmas with your family. Sincerely, Professor Minerva McGonagall. I am happy she apologized for being partial towards me, but this is a bit impersonal, isn't it? I sigh as I wonder what she thinks I'm lacking in Transfiguration as I open the wrapping. The study of the Transfiguration alphabet. The Transfiguration alphabet? I'll admit I don't have it memorized, but is that really a reason to drop my grade from an O to an E? Hell, not even Hermione has it memorized yet. I would say my understanding is the best in the class and I still only have an E. From what I can gather, the Transfiguration alphabet is just ancient runes simplified into pseudo-language from having similar transformative properties. The books in Sid's lab often mentioned the ancient runes, not that I understand them. TCH, I click my tongue as I set down the book on my desk and move on to the next present. It's from Hermione. Surprise, surprise, it's another book. The card on top is just a normal Christmas card, so I just unwrap the book. Hogwarts, A History. I smile at the gift as it is exactly what I would expect of Hermione. Then again, I got her a book as well, so what does that say? I set that book on my desk as well. Winter break is long, so I have more than enough time to skim through them both. With how much I read at Sid's lab I have gotten really good at going through a book fast, even if I don't retain everything. Next is from a name I didn't recognize. Molly Weasley. Is that Ron's mother? The package is soft so I assume it is probably some sort of fabric, but first, there is a letter attached. From Molly Weasley. Dear Soren Black. I know we have not met yet but I hope that will change in the future. My son has sent many letters discussing you, not all of them the kindest. But I would like to thank you for keeping him out of trouble and being his friend. Currently, I am away on vacation but I hope next break you can come to visit with Harry Potter. I have known the Tonks for quite a few years and we don't live that far away so feel free to pop in. Best wishes, Molly Weasley. What the heck? She seems like such a nice lady. How in the hell did the twins and Ron end up so wrong? I have nothing against them but Ron is pretty ignorant and the twins are just erroneous pranksters. I unwrap the gift to see it's a black jumper with a golden embroidered bee on it, it's hand knitted. I'm baffled, how did such a sweet woman have such mischievous kids? I look at the last present and am surprised by what I see, a letter and the name on it is Narcissa Malfoy. The name on it is written in beautiful gold letters and the handwriting is immaculate, like calligraphy. This is honestly more surprising than getting something from Ron's mother. From Narcissa Malfoy. I hope you choose the right side of the family, nephew. Regards, your loving aunt. At least it is short and to the point. As I finish reading it, it goes up in flames and turns to ash almost immediately. I don't really know what to think about this. Is it supposed to be a threat? I don't ponder over it for too long before moving to the present. I open the small gift and notice it is actually a small book. It can't be much bigger than my hand. The title reads Curses, Hexes, and Jinxes. The book itself was pure emerald except for silver lettering on the front. I wonder if it is supposed to be a bribe. I guess it doesn't matter. No way I will take her up on her offer. Pure blood elitists should all just die out. I wonder if she knows what I did to my cousin at Hogwarts? Probably not. That mama's boy probably can't stand to talk about being pushed around by a half-blood. I suppose even if I don't like her I don't mind reading a bit of the book. After going through all of Sid's books my line between good and bad magic is literally non-existent. I can see how dark magic would be perceived as such but in actuality, the only bad thing about it is that you have to imagine them in pain to use it properly. But Reducto is easily the most brutal spell I can think of, literally disintegrating the enemy, and it isn't considered dark magic. Although it is a curse, it is still a spell regularly by common wizards. Not that most can do it as well as I, but still, I'm sure even Uncle knows it. Avada Kedavra, the killing curse, really isn't that bad in hindsight. Yes, its only purpose is to kill, and yes you have to truly want them dead. But is it really that bad to want someone dead? There are many atrocities in this world worse than death. I would know. After Christmas Day the break was still pretty eventful. Uncle Ted got a job at the Ministry of Magic. It's just a low-level job in one of the lower departments, but still, it's really good for a muggle-born wizard in this day and age. Sis Dora graduated from Auror's basic training and got chosen to be apprenticed to someone named Alistar Moody, also known as Mad-Eye Moody. I haven't gotten to meet him yet, but I hope I get to during the summer since I don't trust his reputation. The book about Hogwarts was really interesting. I learned dueling used to be a trained standard at Hogwarts. Nowadays it is only taught at the discretion of the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, usually in your 4th or 5th year. I'm tempted to try and get Dumbledore to consider re-adding it to the curriculum as an elective. It would be a fun class to take next year. I'm sure if I use Harry as leverage I can get him to add it to the curriculum. Maybe blackmailing the most powerful wizard alive isn't a good idea. Nah, I think it will be fine. I don't think it will even come to that. Chapter 32, Train Back to Hogwarts. On the day before the train ride back to Hogwarts I decided to tell the Dementor protecting Uncle Ted to be sure not to go anywhere near the Ministry. Even as an old Dementor with some level of intelligence I find it a bit daft. He does seem to be getting smarter though, they all do. The two older ones protecting Auntie and Sis seem to understand their job well and haven't made any trouble, so that's good. Auntie decides we will take the Muggle car again, which I don't like at first, but the drive there was enjoyable. Mainly because Arthur was on my lap the whole way and Sin enjoyed petting him. The train ride was rather enjoyable as well. There weren't many kids on the train. I was able to get a cabin by myself, so I closed the door and locked it and slowly aged myself. Since I don't age naturally, I decided I'm going to slightly age myself at intervals through the year. Maybe I'll even throw in a growth spurt or two. After I finished changing my appearance I decided to nap since I stayed up last night mesmerizing the Transfiguration alphabet, to satisfy Professor McGonagall's freakishly high standards. I unlocked the door just in case and laid down. No one really bothered me, until Neville came. As I'm resting in my cabin someone shakes my shoulder to wake me up. I open my eyes to see Neville looking at me with a nervous face. I'm now a few inches taller than Neville so he has to look up at me. Are we at Hogwarts yet? I ask confused turning to look out the window. No, we are not, at least not yet. Yet, we are close but that's not what I need your help with. Malfoy took Trevor and I don't know where he put him. He is nearly crying as he tells me this. I try my best not to be annoyed, he is still only 11 or 12 years old so I can't blame him. Where is Malfoy? He smiles at my acceptance to help. He is a train car down in cabin 3. He doesn't have Trevor anymore but I don't know where he put him. I just stand up and head over to Malfoy's cabin. I'm sure he will just tell me as I'm walking. I talk to Neville. So did you like your new remembrall? I thought since your last one doesn't work anymore you would like a new one. I don't look at him as I speak. Neville puts his head down at the mention of presents. I do like it. I'm sorry for not getting you anything, but my grandmother doesn't give me a very large allowance. She says I would probably just waste it all on candy. My eyes narrow. You know, every time you mention your grandmother it's always about something bad or overbearing. Are sure you are doing all right? He keeps his head down as he replies she is overbearing, but it all comes from a good place, she just wants the best for me since I am a bit of a failure. You know that's nearly the exact same thing abuse victims say to reason that they aren't actually being abused. I stop and grab his shoulder. Neville, you are not a failure, just a late bloomer. With just a bit of courage, you could excel just like your parents. Speaking of, where are your parents now? Thanks, my parents, they are currently in Janice Thicky ward in St. Mungo's Hospital. He says in a really light voice. Shit, just eating her soul was too nice for that woman. I think to myself as the darkness rolls in the back of my head. I should have been gentler tearing her soul out. Left her a husk of nothing for the rest of her life. I shake off the dark thoughts as I berate myself. With a deep breath, I give a nod. Let's go get Trevor. We get to Malfoy's cabin and I open the door to see him leaning in a seat with Crabbe and Goyle sitting across from him, as always. Noticing me at the door, Malfoy noticeably flinches. What, Longbottom, go and cry to the half-blood about your missing toad. Neville turns away, which makes me roll my eyes. What, Malfoy, not going to call me a mudblood? Smart. Just hand over the toad, we will be at Hogwarts soon. Malfoy looks spooked. I don't have it anymore, the little bastard pissed on the seat so I had Goyle toss him in the hallway. Ugh, I refuse to go look for that toad. I step back more into the hallway next to Neville. Neville, hold out your hand. He looks confused but still does as I say. I draw my wand and put the tip on his palm. Oxio Trevor. After a second I hear a girl yell from down the hallway and I turn to see a toad flying in the air heading towards us. As Trevor lands on Neville's hand, he looks at me with mouth agape. Even the trio of Slytherin look shocked. Oxio is a 4th year spell, how did you learn it already? Neville still looks amazed. I took a page from Hermione's book and read ahead of the coursework. Wasn't very hard, charms are pretty fun. I speak as if I am trying to convince myself I had fun trying over and over again to no avail until I finally got it. I'm not as talented as I let it seem to Sis Dora. But how else would I explain my ability to keep trying over and over again with no sleep until I succeed? It may seem dumb but it is very effective. Especially for things like Oxio, which took almost no toll on my mental. I stepped back into the cabin doorway. Was fun, Malfoy, but I gotta run. Tell your mother I enjoyed the gift. It was very thoughtful. I close the door as I walk away. Before I get far I hear Neville say thanks. I just wave him off without turning around. It's fine, just learn how to support yourself as well. You'll need it in the future, I'm sure. He looks rightfully disappointed in himself as he nods. After we get back and I get settled in I start to head towards the Great Hall for dinner, but I notice Ron and Harry have shown up in the common room. Harry tells me about a mirror that is apparently hidden in the castle that he can't show me anymore because Dumbledore moved it. It's called the Mirror of Erised, a mirror that shows a person's deepest desire. I turn to Ron. So what did you see in the mirror? Ron just shrugs. I saw myself being the head boy, a prefect, and the winner of the Quidditch Cup. I roll my eyes as expected of the great Ronald Weasley, but you don't even play Quidditch. Well, I will, eventually. Fred and George even said they would play with me over the summer. I may be a star player next year, you never know. He says adamantly. I am indeed a bit impressed by his passion, that will help his training, probably. I guess you are right, you could be a miracle worker. How about you, Harry? I ask, regretting as the words leave my mouth. My parents. I grit my teeth as he says the most obvious answer, shouldn't have asked. Sorry. I already knew that was going to be the answer, why did I ask? I think to myself as I look away. No problem, I already had time to linger on it, I'm feeling better now, Dumbledore counseled me. He gives a small smile. Oh, that makes me curious, what did Dumbledore see? I'm genuinely excited. Harry shrugs. He just lied, he said he saw a pair of freshly knitted wool socks. My face goes stone as he said those words. My heart tightens as I feel the memories rushing back to me. I put my head down. God, that is a rough one, Dumbledore. Maybe I won't blackmail him, I think to myself. What is it? You know something? Ron asks, having a little more insight than anyone expects. I just look up and give a wry smile. Well, I can tell you for sure, he wasn't lying. What's so special about wool socks? They both ask. I shake my head. It's a bit too personal, ask yourselves. I walk by them. I'm going to dinner, are you guys coming with me? They just look at each other for a second with furrowed brows and Harry speaks up. Yeah, sure, we haven't eaten together in a while. Chapter 33, Cloak of Shadows. I return to the dorms before Ron or Harry because I want to check to see if Scabbers was around. But as I step into the dorm rooms I notice a black folded cloth sitting on Harry's bed. I notice it from Sirius's memories, it's Jam's invisibility cloak, apparently a family heirloom. I wonder how Harry got a hold of it. As I look at it I feel a strange allure pulling me towards it. Looking at it closely I notice it gives me the same feeling as a dementor does, more like sin actually. I feel familiar with it, not in Sirius's memory sort of way but me, like it is a missing piece of me. I can feel the darkness is telling me something. It wants me to take it. I ignore it as I grip my wand to force it back. I open my eyes again and continue forward. As I inch closer to it I feel a weight on my chest, I'm anxious, like if I don't grab it now I may never see it again. Logically that just isn't true but I feel like it is. I see no harm in it so I give in to the feeling and grab the invisibility cloak. As I touch it, my cloak pours from my body, and the onyx-colored fog wraps around my arm and swallows the cloak of invisibility. I keep track of what my cloak is doing mentally to make sure the invisibility cloak doesn't get damaged. Even though I'm not fully in control of my cloak at the moment I think I can still pull it back. After only a few seconds my cloak retracts back into my body and vanishes as if nothing happened at all. I look down at the invisibility cloak that I'm still holding and notice it is slightly lighter in color, no longer a dark black. I also no longer see it as alluring, it also seems to be less special. I'm not sure how to say it but it feels different for sure. Thank God no one is here because of dinner, I think to myself as I look around making sure. I refold the cloak and set it on the bed. I take a step back and summon my cloak. As the dark fog swirls around me I can notice it is much darker than before. It is no longer just black or onyx, it is so dark that it feels like the light around it dims. I bring my hand to it and stroke it, I nearly jump in shock, it is no longer soft like a cloud. It now has a metallic sheen but still floats and rolls on the ground like fog. Not only that, it also feels more connected to me, similar to another limb. I pull out my wand and chant quietus to dull the sound I make for a while. After I put away my wand I stick my arm out and extend the cloak out from it like a rod by another 2 feet. Although it still appears to be fog somehow I just know, this is incredibly sturdy. I take my cloak-covered arm and swing it hard towards the wall. Like a flimsy whip it bends slightly as I swing but the second it touches the wall it becomes steel again. Thud. The sound was akin to a small air cannon despite being nearly muted. The wall is left badly damaged as a big crater was formed in it with cracks webbing up to the ceiling. My eyes go wide at the amount of strength the cloak now had, that invisibility cloak sure was special. I look at the now dull black cloak and set it on the bed. I wonder what you truly are. I ponder as I pull out my wand to repair the wall. Thankfully repairing spells are easy enough. Lapis reparo I chant and the wall melts itself together as if nothing happened. I am concerned about the changes to myself but there is nothing I can do about it so I just grunt with a sour face. I put my wand away and begin to walk back to the common room to see if Harry and Ron are back yet but as I take the first step I fall to my knees. Fuck, fuck, fuck I scream in my head. I try to pull out my wand again but the darkness has already consumed my thoughts. I try my best to maintain my thoughts as my judgment is clouded. It feels like my consciousness is being taken away from me. My mouth is salivating as if preparing for a meal. I put my hands on the ground to try and pick myself up. Before I can get up I realize my hands are no longer human, they are the ghastly pale and rotten hands of my dementor form. The hunger is back, and I can't think straight. Thankfully I left Pettigrew alive for this very occasion. I feel I have a good amount of control over my body, so I let myself transform into my dementor form. My school robes were replaced by a black robe that grew as I grew, covering all of my body. My vision again went black and countless lights lit up in the distance, some close, some far. Sin seemingly disappeared, but I can't be bothered to think about him right now. Now I need Pettigrew. As the black fog rolls from my body, I use a thin layer to cover myself and I turn invisible like usual, but this time feels different. Instead of just being invisible now, it seems like I hardly even exist. I'm certain I could hide from anyone like this. Even Dumbledore. Pulling my mind from this revelation, I begin to use my sight to search for Pettigrew's soul. After nearly 5 minutes I finally found it. It was quite far away near a peculiar soul. The soul had a black lump attached to it. Harry. No. Quirrell. Why is Pettigrew with Quirrell? I try to think, but after so long of being hungry my judgment is being clouded. I use my new improved invisibility to head towards them, flying through the walls, ignoring the disgusting looking souls of the ghosts. I move at a rather rapid pace as I near Quirrell's office. I notice there is a barrier made of wards around the office, but they mean nothing. They are far too weak. I pass right through them and enter the office cloaked. As I enter I notice Quirrell is staring down at Pettigrew like a king, and Pettigrew is in human form on one knee, whimpering out words I can't quite hear. This is a weird scene, but I'm in no position to think about it. My mind can only think of feasting at the moment. Without a care in the world, I uncloak myself only feet away from Pettigrew. Both he and Quirrell jump back in surprise, and Pettigrew even falls on the ground, scampering back against the wall trying to get away. A familiar scene. As I approach him with nowhere to go I can see the fear in his eyes. I notice movement on my left. Quirrell seems to have recomposed and drawn his wand. Without even considering him a threat I wave my arm in his direction, and with a mind of its own my cloak flies out. A wall of black mist launches at Quirrell, who puts up a shield, but the cloak goes right through, like tearing paper. The wall of black hits him and sends him flying against the wall. But that is not the end, it continues after him, trying to devour him. The cloak encases him in black like a caterpillar going into a cocoon, and after a second returns to me, leaving an unconscious Quirrell on the ground. I continue towards the now crying and pleading Pettigrew, but I just ignore him. Even if I was sane right now I wouldn't care for his words. As I reach out to him he tries to grab me, but my cloak of fog reaches out and wraps his body up to his neck. I reach down and grab him by the neck and lift him up. Even with his fat body it feels as if I was only lifting a few pounds. I meet his eyes with my bare sockets and he seems to shiver even harder than he was before. I open my mouth and watch as his mouth is forced open. He leans his head back as if guiding the dark grey ball from his third eye to me. Slowly moves from his mouth into mine. As he sees the ball leave his mouth he tries to scream, but he can't. His eyes roll back into his head as his screaming dulls. Once I finally devour the ball I watch as the light in his eyes grows dull and he stops breathing. When he finally stops struggling I drop the body to the ground and feel the euphoria flow through my body. I close my eyes and feel the memories slowly enter my head. Pettigrew was a very simple man, and he knew it. His mother had treated him well and he even had a few friends in his younger years, but once he came to Hogwarts he forever after lived in the shadow of his friends. The handsome Sirius, the smart Remus, and the talented James. He was not as talented, was less handsome, didn't have nearly the same intellect. He hated himself for it. He was a brave coward who would do anything for his friends, but gave in to his resentment and let it fester. When Voldemort came to him with his silver tongue he was able to convince him that he was looked down upon by his friends. That his friends were using him. That I can attest to was untrue. Why would they make him the truth bearer if that was the case? After seeing Pettigrew's past I understood why he did what he did, but still felt deep hatred for him. Looking at his corpse I cursed at myself as I used my cloak to swallow his body. I have to bury him, even if he betrayed them. I'm sure that's what James would have wanted, probably not Sirius though. I say, trying to convince myself. I look over at Quirrell's unconscious body. Now that my mind is clear and the hunger is gone I can decide what to do. I have already forced the darkness back into its small hole in the recesses of my mind. All I can gather from Pettigrew's memories is that Quirrell is a Death Eater and that Voldemort is still alive. After a few minutes of deliberation, I decided to leave him alive for now. I will kill him away from Hogwarts later. If a professor went missing on campus there would be an investigation launched and lingering magic may be able to link it to me. I honestly don't know enough about magic to determine that, besides what can he say? A dementor attacked him on Hogwarts grounds? Ha, as if. If anything he would be locked in a loony bin before they tried to investigate. I once again cover myself in my cloak and head towards the abandoned dungeon bathroom so I can transform back in peace. Chapter 34, Dueling Classes? After I got back to the dorms I went and found Harry and Ron. I talked to them about their Christmas presents. Ron was excited since he had never gotten such an expensive gift. That's honestly a bit sad considering the chess set, although it was nice, was only 3 galleons. Harry was really grateful, it made him less frightened to go back to his aunt and uncle during summer break. I truly do wish I could do more for him, but scaring them may just make things worse. It's too bad I haven't seen Hermione yet, I want to see if she tried apparition yet. The very next day McGonagall called me into her office to give me a more formal apology. It was honestly too awkward, I would have preferred if she left it at just the letter. I have never received an apology before and now I never want one again. Her strict face requesting forgiveness made it seem more like a demand than a request. Wednesday on that same week after Charms class I met up with Professor Flitwick to make a request of him. I didn't need the help of a professor, but of a dueling champion. I step into his office after class to see him quietly writing on parchment with no care in the world. As I step in he looks up from his paper and lets go of his quill. As he let go of the quill it didn't fall, instead, it slowly floated towards the inkwell and gently rested in it. A big smile spreads on his face. Ah, Mr. Black, what do you need? Have a question about today's assignment? I step up to his desk with a greeting. Hello Professor. No actually, already done. Over the break, I read Hogwarts, a history, since Hermione got it for me as a gift. Yes, Miss Granger is indeed a studious one. You had a question over the book. He looks a bit confused. No, I read that Hogwarts used to have a dueling class as an elective you could take in the 2nd to 4th year. Seeing as I'm going into my 2nd year I was wondering if I may be able to get Dumbledore to perhaps reform the class. I also know you were the reigning duelist champion for some years. So I was thinking you could teach that class as well, or maybe suggest another teacher for one of them. Flitwick seemed to stop and ponder at my words and after a few seconds, he looks happy at my interest. If you can get Dumbledore to agree I would not be opposed to the idea of taking on another class. You can tell him I said that when you talk to him. He smiles as he says it. Awesome. I will go to Dumbledore after class today and I'll tell you what he says by tomorrow. I say with a grin. He grabs his quill and begins to write again. All right, if that's all, I have work to do, Mr. Black. I just give a small wave as I walk out. Thank you, Professor. This should be easier than I thought. With Flitwick willing to teach the class it will be a lot easier to convince Dumbledore. I'll bring Harry for good measure, I know Dumbledore favors him for fairly obvious reasons. After potions, I tell Harry about my plans to revive the dueling class and he seems fine with coming with me to Dumbledore's office. He was a little confused that I insisted he come with me to ask. When we get to McGonagall to request to meet Dumbledore she just looks at both of us and nods. Not even an hour later and we are heading to Dumbledore's office. When we walk into the office Dumbledore is feeding Fawkes some seed-like things. When he realized we were in the office he turns to us, with a grandfatherly smile on his face. Hello, please come in. He gestures at 2 seats near his desk. Hello, Headmaster, I say stepping forward with a small smile. I turn to Harry to see him just staring at Fawkes. Fawkes is staring back at him giving him a side eye. He appears like a cat that wants to be pet but doesn't want the other party to know. I nudge Harry's arm. It's a phoenix, never seen one. I say, a bit of teasing. He just shakes his head which causes Dumbledore to chuckle a bit. He then walks up to Harry and offers him the red seed things he was using to feed Fawkes. Here, give him a few and he will warm up to you. He gently hands Harry the seeds that were in his hands. Harry nods. Thank you, sir. He says as he heads towards Fawkes who just eyes him as he walks up. As he holds up his hand to feed Fawkes he bursts into flames and vanishes into dust. Harry quickly turns around, panic written on his face. I didn't do anything. He says in a voice only slightly less than a yell. I chuckle a bit at his panic. While Dumbledore just looks at me laughing with a smile on his face. It's all right my boy, it's in the nature of a phoenix. After some time, they naturally burn to dust then rise again from the cinders. Look closer at the ash. Dumbledore says still smiling. Harry turns around and notices a small chirp coming from the pile of ash. A small head the size of a walnut pokes its head through. Dumbledore walks to it and strokes the head of the chick like Phoenix. He then looks at both of us. So enough distractions, what did you boys come here for? We are here to ask you to reinstate a class that Hogwarts used to run. The elective for second years, dueling. I speak up and Harry nods along. Dumbledore looks over us both while stroking his beard. And who, may I ask, is going to teach this new class? Flitwick, I already got him to agree, he said he would teach it as long as you approve it. He continues to stroke his beard. You have taken quite the initiative. He does indeed only teach morning classes. I could make only 4 half classes in the 2 evening slots. I'm sure without current class you could probably get some talented duelists, maybe even a second Flitwick type talent, I say, trying to be a salesman. He smiles at my pushing. If you feel that strongly about the subject, I see no reason to decline your request. Harry and I get happy but don't celebrate too much, just a fist bump. Now you two should head back and get some rest before you have astronomy tonight. He waves us out. Of course, headmaster, we say in near unison, power walking out of the room, excited to go back and tell our friends the news. The next few weeks progressed like every other, but Quirrell began to cancel classes more and more often. I didn't really care. Even if he wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, he can't with Dumbledore here. Not to mention all of the defensive steps Dumbledore took. I'm sure that 3-headed dog isn't the only one. Easter went by and they had a week off of classes for it, as well as a feast on Easter Day. Then on Saturday after the break ended, we went to Hagrid's hut to see something very interesting. Chapter 35, Norwegian Ridgeback. As Ron, Harry, Hermione, and I step into Hagrid's hut, we see Hagrid huddled over a small fire staring intently at it. He is too distracted by something in the fire and doesn't even realize us as we walk until Harry speaks up. Hagrid. Harry says, tapping him on the back. Hagrid seems to jump as he turns around. I ain't got nothin'. Oh, it's only you kids. Don't go sneakin' up on me. We knocked. I speak up a few times. The trio nod along with my words. Ah, sorry 'bout that. Bit busy. He says, turning back to the fire. What are you doing? Hermione asks, peeking around him. We all follow suit. Hagrid. Where did you get that? It must have cost you a fortune. Ron says excitedly. As I peer into the pot, I see a large egg nearly 10 inches tall. It's sitting directly in the fire, but rather than getting brittle, it looks like heated up metal glowing a bit from the heat. What is it? I ask Ron. A dragon egg. He answers, still excited. My brows raise in surprise as I turn to Hagrid in search of answers. I won in a bet. Last night I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game o' cards. He was a shady bloke, covered himself head to toe in a dark robe with a long hood, and seemed happy to get rid o' Hagrid says proudly. I shake my head at how shady it sounds already. But why? I mutter to myself, trying to understand the thoughts of the hooded figure. And what are you planning to do with it once it is hatched? Hermione asks with a bit of attitude. Well, I've been doing a bit o' readin'. He pulls a large book out of his huge overcoat. Dragon breeding for pleasure and profit, says here they breathe fire on to hatch so I figured if I keep in the fire it oughta hatch et. He looks happy at his great idea. I squeeze the bridge of my nose. Hagrid, you live in a wooden hut. He ignores me and continues to tend the flames. I roll my eyes at his dismissive attitude. I shake my head, staring at the thatch roof above our heads. Seeing he doesn't care, I just sigh. Just be sure to tell us when it starts to hatch. He gives a nod. I turn to the others. So since we are here, do you guys want to do the homework? Yet? No. Hermione and Ron said at the same time, while Harry just shrugs. I look at Ron with a confused face. Would you rather do the herbology homework by yourself? He looks genuinely upset. I would rather not do it at all. Ron, you have AD in herbology. I thought you wanted to be a head boy? When has a head boy ever had AD in herbology? I say as if I'm talking to a child, which I'm sure he hated. Ugh, fine, Ron says, pulling out his homework. A few days later during breakfast, I get a letter from Hagrid. It only had 2 words on it. It's hatching. Guys, it is hatching, I say to the trio sitting next to me. We are skipping herbology, right? No, out of the question. Hermione flat out refuses. Come on, Hermione, how many times are you going to see a dragon hatching? Ron says louder than I would like. Ron, SSSHHH, I whisper while Harry covers his mouth. "So why?" I hear Ron say muffled under Harry's hand. We manage to convince her to come along and we all begin to head towards Hagrid's cabin. As we are walking away from the group heading to herbology, I notice Malfoy's gaze linger on us, but he looks away as soon as we meet eyes. As we reach Hagrid's hut, he opens the door for us, looking absolutely ecstatic. Once we all get inside, Hagrid rushes to the fire, putting on large cotton cooking mittens. He grabs the egg off the fire as it begins to crack and places it on the table. We watch the egg intently to see what kind of dragon comes out. The egg finally cracks open and a small 3 inches tall 6-inch long green dragon breaks out with a cute little roar. I say roar, but it was more like a long yipe. It has a small set of horns with tiny horns running along its spine and 5 horns on its tail pointing in different directions. A Norwegian ridgeback. Those are rare. Ron calls out. I want to question why Ron is so knowledgeable, but I just ignore it. It sneezes a few times, sparks fly from its mouth each time it sneezes. Isn't she a beaut? Hagrid asks with tears in his eyes while reaching out to stroke its small head. The ridgeback snaps at his fingers, nearly getting him. Bless him, he even knows his mum, Hagrid said, tears threatening to fall. How big do Norwegian ridgebacks grow, Hagrid? Hermione asks. Hagrid was about to answer when he suddenly grew pale and looked choked up. He was staring at the window with wide eyes before running at it, opening the curtain. Opening the curtain, you could see the back of a kid running towards the castle. He had seen it. Malfoy, I say in a low voice while Harry nods at my words. The classic platinum blonde hair can't be mistaken even at this distance. I should try to catch him later. Why not set the dragon free? Harry suggests. Can't, he's too little, he would die. I've decided to call him Norbert. Come on Norbert, come to mum. Hagrid says, looking affectionately at the dragon who is starting back blankly. I look over at Ron. What about your brother? He can take him, can't he? Ron's face lights up. Yeah, Charlie can take him. Brilliant. Charlie can put him back in the wild. How about it, Hagrid? Hagrid looks down, but after a little consulting agrees, and Ron immediately writes a letter to Charlie and Harry sends Hedwig on her way. The next night Harry, Ron, and I sneak out to play with Norbert in his small cage near Hagrid's hut. When I went to pet him, he is looking at me curiously, tilting his from side to side as he slowly moves closer. He sniffs my hand before rubbing his head against my palm, and I pet him properly with a big grin on my face. I have always been a sucker for cute creatures, haven't I? I hold my palm out and it rests its head there looking up at me like a puppy. As I pull away, I hear a screech come from above me. As I look up, I see Shy flying down, landing on my shoulder. Shy leans forward and immediately nips at the dragon as if it is a mouse, causing it to roar and back away. Sparks fly from its mouth as it threatens Shy. I just laugh and back away, holding Shy to keep him from nipping at the baby dragon again. When I back away, Ron takes the chance to try and pet the dragon but immediately gets bitten. Ouch! He yells as he holds out his bleeding hand. It bit me. I won't be able to hold a quill for a week. He complains. Day, it's a dragon, I say, and Harry laughs. You'll want to go to Madame Pomfrey about that, I'm pretty sure they are venomous. He is wrapping around a handkerchief around the wound as I'm talking. They are? They are. Am I going to die? He questions his own knowledge before going pale. I roll my eyes. Probably not, just get it checked in the morning. Let's go before Filch finds us. I begin walking away and Harry follows me, putting on the cloak. As I'm walking away, I hear Ron's whimpering voice. What do you mean probably? Chapter 36, The Heist. In a few days, Hedwig came back with a reply. Dear Ron. How are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian ridgeback, but it won't be easy getting him here. I think the best thing will be to send him over with some friends of mine who are coming to visit me next week. Trouble is, they mustn't be seen carrying an illegal dragon. Could you get the ridgeback up the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? They can meet you there and take him away while it's still dark. Send me an answer as soon as possible. Love, Charlie. This was good news considering the bite was indeed venomous and Ron was just starting to get better, so this way he still had another 2 days to rest. We ended up going to see Hagrid and Norbert the next day to give him the good news. The plan is to go with Hagrid and use the invisibility cloak and bring Norbert there. Luckily Hagrid doesn't have to lurk around when walking in the castle at night, so it will only be 2 of us. 2 of us because Ron and Hermione ditched us. Hermione didn't want the chance of getting in trouble, which I can't really argue with. Ron said he didn't want anything else to do with the snake with wings, he is just being petty to an animal in my opinion. I also hadn't gotten a chance to see Malfoy alone lately, he has started to avoid me. I don't know why my cousin treats me so coldly. On the day we got to see Norbert off, Harry and I head to the astronomy tower with Hagrid and Norbert. The goodbye was just a lot of crying on Hagrid's part, and Charlie's friends pointed out Norbert was a weird name for a girl. As a last-minute decision, Hagrid changed her name to Norberta. We walked Hagrid back to his hut, trying to soothe his crying to no avail. After he stops crying, we start heading back to the dorms, talking as we walk, but halfway there we realize we made a fatal mistake. We forgot the cloak in Hagrid's hut. As we turn around to go back and get it, we hear a voice come from behind. "Hello, Mr. Black, Mr. Potter." I turn around to see McGonagall standing there with her hard stare, holding Neville by the collar as he looks disappointed. As we meet eyes, he speaks up. "Sorry, Soren, I tried to warn you that Malfoy overheard your plan and told Filch on you." I just give a small smile. "It's fine, Neville, at least you tried." I meet eyes with McGonagall. "Hello, Professor. Don't give me that, Mr. Black, just when I was trying to change my opinion of you." She shakes her head. "Even you, Mr. Potter, I expected more of you." "Sorry, Professor," Harry says weakly. I almost forgot she was a pedo for Harry. I think to myself, obviously not going to say it aloud. "I would never have believed it of any of you." "Mr. Filch says you were up in the astronomy tower. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Explain yourselves." She obviously has us pinned here, no reason to argue and get into more trouble. I was just," Harry stutters out. "I believe I have a good idea of what is going on. You fed Draco Malfoy some cock and bull story about a dragon. You were trying to get him out of bed and into trouble. I've already caught him. I suppose you think it's funny that Longbottom here heard the story and believed it, too." She raises a brow at Neville as if he would actually reply, but he just looks at the floor. I am disgusted. 3 kids out of bed in one night. 50 points will be taken from Gryffindor and you will all receive detection, including you, Mr. Longbottom. She angrily glares at Harry and me. 50. As if acquire Harry, Neville, and I yell in sync. Each. She speaks slowly as if stabbing in a blade. But that's nearly all the points I've gained for us. My voice is quiet, but she still hears me. She just glared at me even harder. I wonder what for, not like I was understating. It's not she is the one getting the points stolen from her. In fact, she is the real thief here. Follow me, your detention will be decided at a later date, until then you will attend class with no mishaps. She glares at us again. Is that understood? I just nod while Harry and Neville are both looking at the ground. Neville looks on the verge of crying. Once we get back to the doors we all immediately go to bed. I say go to bed, but I don't think Harry slept and Neville was crying into his pillow for hours. I swear that boy is made out of water. I really can't seem to make him grow up. The next day the other Gryffindors started to treat us differently, Neville less so since he wasn't really responsible. But they noticeably started to speak poorly of Harry and avoid me, probably because they were still scared of me. That weekend our punishment was decided, and it was also decided that Malfoy would be punished as well. That night we met Filch at the courtyard gate. Neville, Harry, and I were confused as to what our punishment really was. As we saw Filch he looked at us with his usual annoyed-looking face. "Follow me," he says with a gruff. "Bet after tonight you'll think twice about breaking school rules again." Oh yeah, hard work and pain are the best teachers if you ask me. It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out, hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for a few days. I've got the chains still in my office, keep 'em well oiled in case they're ever needed. Right, off we go, and don't think of running off, now, it'll be worse for you if you do. He has a creepy grin on his face. That sounds a bit extreme. I give him a look as if he is insane, to which he seems proud. Humph. You kids wouldn't survive back in that day. You got unlucky, they gave you bad detention this time, you'll have to go with Hagrid into the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid's suggestion. He wipes a small tear from his eye. I didn't know the big lug knew punishment. All of our eyes go wide knowing we would be going into the Forbidden Forest at night. That's a bit far, no? I think to myself. Chapter 37, Night in the Forbidden Forest. You're late. Hagrid looks at Filch with an annoyed glare. Filch clicked his tongue. Blame the kids. He turns and gives a creepy smile showing his dirty teeth. Have fun in the forest, don't get bit. I roll my eyes at his words. He walks away while Hagrid stares knives at him, obviously not liking the man very much. As he gets out of earshot I look at Hagrid. Why exactly are we going into the forest? And what's this about it being your suggestion? Neville and Harry nod in agreement and Malfoy still looks terrified. Hagrid puts his hands up defensively to calm us. Don't worry yourself, boy, I know this forest like the back of me hand. Ain't nothing goin' to get yet. Now each of ye grab a lantern and put on some boots or your shoes'll be ruined. All of us hesitantly begin to put on a pair of boots and grab a lantern. Hagrid gives an affirming nod seeing us getting our boots on, but his gaze lingers on Malfoy, who is complaining while putting on his boots. It's hard to hear him muttering, but I can pick out a few words, till my father hears about this. What does a keeper of keys even do anyway? Listening to a man who looks like a filthy half-giant. Honestly, I'm kind of annoyed at his bickering, so I glare at him. It took him a second, but once he realized I was glaring at him, he immediately shut up. That being the case, I also don't know what a keeper of keys does. Keep keys? Hagrid smiles once he shuts up. All right, you ready? We give a small nod. Good, it's dangerous at night, so stick close to Fang and me. We're just doing a round of the forest, so keep close. As we walk into the forest, it seems as if a fog latched onto us, making the floor of the forest barely visible. The only source of light comes from our lanterns and the moon shining through the blue and silver leaves that clung to the nearly barren and gaunt trees. If you look past the eeriness, it is kind of beautiful. Hagrid, what will we do if something comes after us? Neville says from behind me as if he is hiding. Not a very good hiding spot since he is exposed in 3 directions, but I digress. Hagrid keeps leading us as he talks. Don't ya worry, nothing here will get ya as long as you're with me. Neville gives a small nod but still seems terrified. Draco isn't really any better off. Being an immortal is pretty nice in situations like these, but I'm still kind of freaked out. Not because of getting hurt, but if something happens, I'm not sure I'm strong enough to protect everyone here. That, and that which is unknown, is usually a bit scary. Not too far away from the entrance to the forest, Hagrid stops us and bends over what seems to be a liquid pool of metal. It looks like a pool of mercury from a chemistry classroom. Hagrid, what is that? Harry asks, looking over his shoulder. Unicorn blood, the reason we're doing rounds in the forest. Found a dead one a few weeks back. Most pure things I'll ever come across, unicorns they are. Hagrid's face scrunched at his words. But who would be killing them? I ask. Only a foul creature could do such a thing. It's their blood they're after. Unicorn blood can save a person from even the brink of death. But it's a cursed existence it is, living off unicorn blood, many would say no better than death. It's the price for killing something so pure. Hagrid gets up and scans us all with his eyes. Voldemort. I think to myself. The injured unicorn should be nearby. Neville, Malfoy, you'll be with me. Soren, Harry, you take Fang and don't stray too far. Send a flare if you're in trouble. Neville and Malfoy look happy they'll be with Hagrid, but they are still shaking in their boots. Will do. I say, maybe my thoughts betray my words. Harry seems to be relieved at my confidence and just follows me as I pat Fang's head. I walk in the opposite direction as Hagrid. I close my eyes and focus to see souls, and to my surprise, the forest is packed with human-like souls, but not quite human. But the closest soul near us is one I recognize because it's human, and has a black growth on it. My gaze hardens as I look in the direction of the soul, which just so happens to be directly where we are heading. I wave my hand signaling Harry to slow down as we sneak up on heavily cloaked Quirrell standing over a unicorn about to feast on its blood. Noticing it's still alive, I feel a need to save it. I look over at Harry. Go get Hagrid, he couldn't have gone far. Be quiet about it. I order Harry in a whisper. But Hagrid said to send up a flare. What's over there anyway? Harry says as he peers over my shoulder to see Quirrell about to feed on the unicorn. As Harry sees him, he yells in pain, holding his scar, alerting Quirrell that we are there. Damn, go. Get Hagrid. I say, getting a bit angry as I pull out my wand and throw a stupefy at Quirrell. Quirrell quickly pulls his wand and deflects the spell as Harry struggles to his feet and begins to sprint in the direction of Hagrid's group. Seeing Harry out of earshot, I look at Quirrell and his eyes past the darkness of the hood. I see why you are cancelling class so often. Professor Quirrell. He doesn't remove the hood, but I can hear a muffled whisper coming from him like he is talking to himself. But the voice isn't the same. I can hear the voice, but it is very distorted, making it a bit hard to make out. Not wanting the unicorn to die, I have to kill this idiotic professor quickly. Sorry, but you'll have to die for me. Reducto. I send 3 quick reducto towards him while stepping closer. Quirrell backs away as he deflects the reducto, which instantly turns a few tree bases to ash, causing them to fall down. Using this as a chance to escape as he turns around and begins using the Death Eater's signature flying spell. Petrificus totalis. As he turns his back I cast a petrifying curse which he deflects without facing it like it's nothing. Fuck this, I mutter under my breath as my cloak wraps around me and I begin to transform into my dementor form. Once I transform I launch off the ground and quickly catch up to him. I reach out with my nearly skeletal hand and grab him by the back of the neck, dragging him to the ground. My cloak wraps his struggling body, making him go limp as I rip off the top of his cloak, revealing a deformed face. The face looks at me with its lack of nose and red snake-like eyes. The back of Quirrell's head is another face, that looks like the Dark Lord in Bellatrix's memories. Looking at me the face speaks, but not to me. Quirrell. You incompetent fool, I told you to kill the boy. I told you he felt similar to that dementor. His eyes glared at me with hatred. The Dark Lord, reduced to being attached to someone like Quirrell, how you have fallen, why don't you just die already, you rat? My voice speaks directly into his, their heads. Boy, I will not die even if you kill me now, and I will come after you, why don't you join me? We could rule this world, with your power we could rule both muggles and wizards alike. The deformed face tried to give a charming smile, but it did nothing but disgust me. You can come for me again, and you will die like the dog you are. Stretch your soul as much as you want, into as many Horcruxes as you want, I'll just eat them all. The darkness rumbles to life as I flip Quirrell and look into his terrified eyes. I tighten my grip as I choke Quirrell and begin to feast. Common sense is telling me this is stupid, to eat the soul of one of the evilest wizards ever to live, but something inside me is telling me to do it. As I feast I feel the weight of the soul is many times heavier than any soul I've eaten before. Quirrell has tears streaming down his face as he watches his own mutated soul leaving his body and entering my ghastly mouth. As the mutated soul reaches my lips, part of the growth turns into fog, leaking away. I try to eat the fog as it pours from the soul, but its pull is stronger than me and a portion of it is still able to leave in the form of a screaming face as it flies away. Part of Voldemort's soul escapes, but the majority of it I was able to keep attached to Quirrell's soul. After eating the soul, memories flood my head, but almost none of them are of Quirrell. Instead, they are of a young boy known as Tom Riddle and his life at Wool's orphanage and his first few years at Hogwarts. From the few snippets of memories, I got a good idea of why Voldemort is the way he is. He can't feel love or compassion, but he feels most other feelings, which includes fear. An ungodly fear of death haunts him. Good, I hear my own voice rumble in my head, but I did not speak it. Chapter 38, In the Shadow of the Moonlight. As I see Voldemort's memories, Quirrell's are just like a whisper in the back of my head. Seems like that small portion of Voldemort's soul was stronger than Quirrell's was. A bit sad, but it makes sense. Voldemort must know something about souls considering how much he looked into Horcruxes. The years of Voldemort's life, no Tom Riddle's life, I can see are pretty boring. He never did anything himself, he had his lackeys do it. But it does impress me how well he could talk people into doing things, especially the weak-minded. They were like chickens to him. At the orphanage, he would always do things he could never be caught for, and at Hogwarts, it was the same. I think I just got unlucky on the portion of life I saw. I will have to look more into this Tom Riddle. Quirrell's memories were much more complete. I saw nearly all major points in his life. He was constantly bullied and made fun of, but nonetheless he still viewed himself as an indignant lion who had yet to bloom. That is why he went on to travel the world, to prove his worth, to prove that people were wrong about him. He didn't believe Voldemort was dead, he wanted to defeat the weakened Dark Lord. Really, it was actually just a pathetic life. I didn't really feel any pity for him. He was just a pathetic man who lived a pathetic life and got a pathetic death. And is about to have his body eaten by a lethofold. I easily force back the darkness trying to influence me while I am watching these memories. I gather myself as I shift back into human form. Sin, eat him quick so we can get out of here without leaving evidence. Sin seems a bit confused since I told him not to eat people anymore, but he seems happy to comply anyway. I want to try and get back to the unicorn to quickly try and save it. Also, I don't want to leave evidence. I don't want to leave anything that could jeopardize this wonderful new life I've been given. I look away as Sin is eating since it's kinda gross, a human corpse being eaten. But you gotta do what you gotta do. After he finishes eating Quirrell's body, I used Reducto on his clothes and a wind charm to blow away the ashes. I apparate behind the tree near the unicorn just in case Hagrid is already there. I doubt it though, since I sent Harry to go find him with no way, and this forest all looks the same. That's like trying to find a lone berry in a bush, doable, but dumb if you try. I did that on purpose to give me time to kill Quirrell, who knew he would run and force me to kill him faster. Walking out from behind the tree I see the figure of a centaur kneeling over the body of the unicorn, so I pull out my wand. Step away from the unicorn, I say with my wand pointed at the centaur as I slowly walk towards him. When the centaur turns and sees me, he slowly gets up on his horse legs with raised hands and speaks. I'm just trying to comfort my friend in her final moments. Seeing he means no harm, I stop pointing my wand at him and walk up beside the unicorn. Seeing that it is still breathing but is slowly bleeding out, I still think I can save it. If only I had a healing potion, then I could for sure save it. I'm so stupid, I need to start keeping a stockpile inside my cloak. I look up at the centaur. This unicorn can still be saved, can you go get Hagrid while I keep her stable? As I finish speaking, I begin singing the Vulnerasainantur healing spell as my wand slowly traces over the wounds on its neck. There is no saving her, she is already destined to die as the stars foretold. The centaur looks down at me with a sad look in his eye, which makes me a bit pissed. After reaching the gap in the chant for the second verse, I look up at him in the eyes. Shove those stars up your ass. This unicorn will only die of blood loss right now, which Hagrid can mend, and if I stop chanting he may just die from reopening wounds. So if you don't run along and find Hagrid, I'll make sure this unicorn isn't the only horse to die tonight. I feel the darkness invade my mind as I feel genuine anger at this dumb horse. He flinches at my gaze, but I just go back to continue my healing. The second I speak my piece, I begin the second verse of the chant, making care that I don't mess it up. The centaur hurries off, hopefully to find Hagrid, if not I'll have to make sure that centaur never gets to see the stars again. By the time I finish the third repeat of the spell, I notice my body is starting to strain from magic overuse. I'm amazed I was even able to last this long. After the spells I flung earlier, I still managed to use the most powerful healing spell to my knowledge to its full effect. It has to be cast 3 times to take full effect. Not only that, but this spell is partial time manipulation, which is known to use a lot of stamina. The first cast stops the bleeding, the second cleans the wound and begins to heal it. If you stop it here, it may tear or leave a nasty scar. The third cast fully heals the wound, taking away any trace of the wound having ever been there. Luckily I hear footsteps rushing towards me coming from the direction the centaur left. Looking up I see Hagrid, Harry, Neville, and Malfoy running my way. Neville and Malfoy look like they really don't want to be running this way, probably think the bad guy is still here. As Hagrid gets closer, I notice a potion ready in his hand. It seems the centaur told them the situation. I just sit exhaustedly on the ground waiting for them to get here. I'm glad I learned that healing spell. I actually learned that just in case Sistora ever used the Seeker coin while injured. The spell can really save you from some vicious wounds. It took me nearly a fourth of break just to memorize that spell. I didn't even know if I could cast it till I just did a few minutes ago. Is she still alright? Hagrid asks out of breath. Yeah, for now, but her heart is overworking due to lack of blood. She will die soon, I say, also short of breath. Hagrid kneels by her head and puts her head on his lap as he pours the potion into the unicorn's mouth. After a few seconds, I put my hand on her and feel she is no longer shaking and her heartbeat is back near normal. She should be alright soon enough, Hagrid says while sighing relief. Harry looks happy about it, but Neville is looking around at the trees with a scared look on his face. I feel like every time I help this boy he immediately goes back to his old ways as soon as I'm gone. Am I the James to his Peter? Oh no. So Hagrid, who is that centaur who was here earlier? I was too busy to ask his name. I say while leaning against a log stroking the unicorn. Firenze, a bit of a outcast in the centaur community, he ain't much for their traditions, Hagrid says. I grunt in response. Sure, I'm used to myself. Did you heal the wound? Hagrid asks, looking at me. Yeah, I used Vulnerasainantur, I say while running my hand over where the wounds used to be. Never heard of it, Hagrid admits. After around a minute, the unicorn is able to move again. Another minute after that it starts to get up. Once it gets up it turns to me and begins to nuzzle its head into my shoulder, which makes me laugh. Hagrid smiles. Well, now that she's fine we should get going. We've stuff to talk about when we get back. He looks at me as he speaks the last sentence. I rub the unicorn's mane one last time before we start to walk away. But the unicorn sticks close behind me, which Hagrid and I immediately notice it. I rub her head again with a smile. I gotta go now, you should stay here, it's safer now. The unicorn shakes its head and huffs as if saying no, which almost makes me burst out laughing. Everyone but Malfoy smiles at this interaction. It's rare for one to get attached to a boy, I think this is a first, Hagrid says from behind me. After thinking for a second I look at Hagrid. Can she stay at your place? You have a ton of pens for different animals, right? He doesn't even take a second to think before going after the opportunity to house a unicorn. You can bet your sweet petunias she can stay with me, I'll even build her own area. I turn back to her while rubbing her nose. How does that sound? Would you like to stay with Hagrid so I can come to see you all the time? Seemingly understanding my words, she lets out a happy neigh which makes my smile grow even more. Looking over her beautiful glowing silver nearly white mane, I ask, how about I give you a name as well? To which she happily nods and nudges into me more. I walk to her side and stroke her mane. How about Lure, after your beautiful glowing mane? Hearing the name, she does a happy trot around me which most of us laugh at. It seems you have regained your energy. I look over at Hagrid. We should get going, it's getting really late. Hagrid nods and starts walking while I look over at the others. Harry is staring at the unicorn like he wants to pet it as well but doesn't have the courage. Neville looks less scared as he is staring at Lure, seemingly not remembering we are in a forest with terrifying creatures that will murder you for no reason. Lastly, Malfoy is looking at me with an annoyed face, probably upset we spent so long in these woods for a shiny horse. On the way back, Lure sticks to my side like glue. I find it rather adorable, would have even been more so if her body didn't stand taller than me. Once we get back, Hagrid sets up one of his old roaming areas for Lure to stay in for the time being. I have a sad goodbye with Lure as I walk away. She gives me puppy eyes. Any weaker-willed man would have stayed to sleep by her pen. Before we left, Hagrid told me Dumbledore would probably be calling on me again in the next day or two to discuss what happened in the woods. In response to this, I just grunted and accepted my actions have consequences. Chapter 39, The Animal Lover. The next morning, nearly all the Gryffindors knew about Lure being out in the stables. Once Hermione heard we had a unicorn, she practically begged me to let her go and see it. I was planning on going and seeing Lure this morning with everyone anyway, so it's not any extra work for me. Ron also seemed really interested since he was one of the people telling basically everyone he saw about the unicorn. After we had breakfast, Ron, Harry, Hermione, and I made our way to Hagrid's shack. When we knocked on his door there was no answer, so we peered in his window but the shack was empty. Let's just go see Lure at the stables then, I'm sure Hagrid's probably there too, I say to the trio, causing all of them to nod like pecking chickens. The stables are right next to Hagrid's house but they are technically inside the Forbidden Forest, so we aren't supposed to be here. Not that the forest really bothers me anyway, it would still be scary to most normal kids. After the short walk to the stables, we can see Hagrid is hammering in large fence stakes to make a 2-meter tall fence. I also notice that the big crossbars that will span the fence are made of silver. Hey, Hagrid! I call while waving a hand so he can spot us. Seeing us heading his way, he puts his tools down and walks to us. What ya all doin' here so early? I just wanted to check on Lure and these two wanted to meet her. I gesture over at Ron and Hermione. Ron just nods his head and Hermione steps forward excitedly. Where is she, Hagrid? I've always wanted to see one since learning they were real. Sometimes with her talent in magic, I forget that she was unaware of magic only half a year ago. Hagrid seems happy seeing someone else interested in animals, he just smiles and points to the stables in the next large clearing. She is staying alone right now, so feel free to go in the pen if you want to. Hermione just marches off in the direction of the stables and is quickly followed by Ron and Harry. Hagrid looks at me as if he was expecting me to run off as well, but I don't, I just watch them and look back at Hagrid. Thanks for building her a new grazing area, Hagrid, I know this is probably going to take you a lot of time. If you need some money for materials just tell me, I am pretty rich for a kid after all. I give a cocky grin like a rich young master. At that he laughs, but seeing my face he stops. Oh, you're serious? Well, I won't be talking no money from a kid, so keep it, I got plenty saved up meself. I just shrug. All right. What's the silver bars for? Hagrid just gazes at me as he goes back to building the fence. Werewolves, bloody things, would love to come after a unicorn stuck in a pen, but they hate touchin' silver. I look at the pile of silver bars on the ground, and will those be enough to keep them out? I ask, concerned for Lure. He shakes his head. No, that's why I'll have one of my hippogriffs staying with her. She is a sweet one, she is, her name is Stormwing, most lovin' and territorial hippogriffs I got. How do you know they'll get along? I ask. Introduced them to each other last night, they took a quick liking to each other. He says while hammering in a stake. Paying closer attention, I notice Hagrid has bags under his eyes. Wait, Hagrid, did you go to sleep last night? He doesn't look up from his hammering and answers, it's not every day you get to manage such a wonderful creature. I got to put in the effort to take care of M2. I just sigh at his zealousness of properly taking care of his animals, honestly, it's admirable. Well thanks, Hagrid, it means a lot. He just nods and continues hammering. I think he is too tired to pay full attention to multiple tasks. Seeing this I start walking over towards the other stables. When I get close I can see Hermione is standing in front of Lura gently stroking her head with a huge grin on her face. Meanwhile, Harry and Ron are standing on the side a few feet away from them with sour faces. Lura seems to be enjoying the attention, but as soon as I get within 20 meters her head snaps over to look at me. She rushes over to me, nearly knocking Hermione over, clearing the 20 meters in only a second or two, probably a bit faster than me flying in my dementor form honestly. She almost crashes into me as she stops basically on top of me and rests her neck on my shoulder as if bringing me into a hug. I smile. I wrap my arms around her neck and stroke her mane. Looking past Lura I can see Hermione is pouting with her arms crossed and the two boys have even more sour looks than before. I just laugh as I put my hand on Lura's side and start to guide her back to the trio. As I guide her back to the trio I notice Lura is doing a happy trot, making the trio even more jealous, to which I can only smile wryly. After staying at the pen for most of the day we are forced to leave because of dinner and curfew. Harry and Ron didn't even get to pet Lura as she didn't let them close, but she was warming up to them, a bit. Meanwhile, Lura seemed to like Hermione and let her pet her with no problem. The next morning I went out to Hagrid's before classes and had him teach me how to make friends with the hippogriff so it wouldn't attack me when I go to visit Lura. Hagrid tried to convince me that Stormwing didn't like strangers and that I could just visit Lura in her pen, but I insisted. Against all of Hagrid's expectations, Stormwing seemed to like me a lot and immediately accepted me. Although she didn't like me touching her too much, I was allowed to pet her nearly pitch black wings and greyish-white beak. Hagrid also finished the fence that morning, so Lura got her grazing area and a new pen. I got to see the happy Lura running around her new open area. I could tell already, these days at Hogwarts would be the happiest times of my life. When I got back to the dorms to grab my books for Charms class, Professor McGonagall pulled me aside. I had indeed gotten summoned by Dumbledore again. Hopefully, I can get by with half-truths again. Chapter 40, A Recurring Visitor. After entering Dumbledore's office I notice his face is much more serious than I've seen it before. That being said, I've only met that man a handful of times. As I step closer he speaks first. Mr. Black, how come it is always you who comes into my office? You have graced my office a record number of times. No student has even been to my office this many times in a year. I grin. Maybe we should have our meetings in McGonagall's office then. I say, trying to lighten the mood. He just sighs and shakes his head. I expect an in-depth explanation of what happened in the Forbidden Forest 2 nights ago. I just roll my eyes. Alrighty, pull out the pensieve, I may as well just show you. Dumbledore nods and waves his hand as the wall next to me opens and a pensieve floats out, stopping in front of me. I pull out my wand and put it up to my temple as I slowly begin to pull out a glowing silver strand of memories and place them in the bowl. As the memories touch the water, the silver stand sways as it is slowly transformed into a dark cloud swirling in the glowing crystal-like water. I take a step back from the bowl, gesturing at it for him to take a look. Using my very limited skills I managed to only change the memories only slightly. After Quirrell runs away I made it so instead of chasing him I immediately started healing Lura. It was doable since I wasn't altering memories, I was just rearranging them and not giving the connecting portion. I can thank Sid for my limited knowledge of legilimency and occlumency. This is what happens when you only study the theory behind it and not how to actually do it. That being said, I'm just lucky to have it. Walking up to the pensieve, Dumbledore looked at me before putting his face into the water. After he started viewing the memory I decided to pass the time by petting Fawkes, who seemed to be enjoying the attention. Fawkes looks like he was kind of young still. I wonder how fast they grow up. After a few minutes of waiting for Dumbledore he raises his head with furrowed brows. Oh no, I think to myself, did I mess up the memory manipulation? He looks at me with a complicated look. Boy, how did you know that thing was Professor Quirrell? I shrug. I guessed since I was at the time nearly sure he is a Death Eater. Now I am positive he is a Death Eater. The fact he was talking to someone in a whisper I assume was him contacting another Death Eater, or Voldemort. He nods his head but doesn't look very believing. And how about the fact you were able to chain cast 3 spells together in such a smooth manner? I roll my eyes. You should know better than anyone that talented people don't follow common logic. Giving me a hard look, Dumbledore seems to be assessing my answer. As Dumbledore looks me in the eyes I feel something trying to sneak its way into my mind with legilimency. Not having experienced this before I pour all my power into the wall on my mind, repelling the intruder. Dumbledore stumbles a step back onto the desk. He puts a hand down to support himself while the other is holding his head. I get startled at his fall while Fawkes seems to squawk in concern for him. My brows furrow as I realize it was him who tried to invade my mind. It seems like the glaringly obvious answer, but I didn't want to think someone like him would try that. I just stand there staring, waiting for him to defend himself as to why he just did that. If he had not had his defenses down due to underestimating me, he would have easily invaded my mind. This thought scares me a little. After a second of collecting himself, Dumbledore looks back up at me without meeting my eyes. I notice his complexion is a bit paler than before. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not very trusting of those who have such overwhelming talent. History has shown that everyone with such talent will be corrupted eventually. He still doesn't look at me as he speaks. My brows furrow, but you aren't like that, and as far as I know you were extremely talented in your younger years. He finally meets my eyes again. Everyone gets corrupted by power, I have yet to see an exception in my long life. I give a small smile. Well, you met one today. He sighs and shakes his head. You are a lot like him, you know. My father? I ask, genuinely curious. He shakes his head again. No, like Voldemort. I shiver a bit at his words. Is that an insult, headmaster? My eyes narrow, trying to decipher his complex gaze. Take it as you will, he was charming, talented, and worst of all deserving of pity. You, on the other hand, are much kinder. He never showed any kind of emotion, he was just a charming young man. He looks off into space with a sorrowful face. As long as I have my friends and family, I don't think I could ever see myself going evil, I say with disbelief in my voice. Looking back up at me, Dumbledore asks, and what if your friends and family are no longer there? My fists tighten. Then the only ones who have to fear me are those who take from me. I feel the darkness rumbling at the thought. Dumbledore seems to flinch as he looks into my eyes, but quickly shakes it off. He stands back up while giving a small chuckle. You also remind me a lot of me, boy, at least with the way you think. I have never harmed an innocent on purpose, but if someone I care for is in danger, then I would do anything to save them. Many would call me a devil for the things I have done, yet millions of others call me a hero, only I know which to be true. Seeing that the tension is dispersing, I continue. A devil who becomes one to protect the ones he cares for was never truly a devil. Likewise, a hero who becomes one for vanity or fame was never really a hero, to begin with. Dumbledore smiles at what I said, a lot of wisdom coming from a 12-year-old. My face goes a bit red and I feel my ears burning. How did this go from him trying to read my mind without permission to him making fun of me? I click my tongue as I turn around and begin to walk away. I'm going back to class now, headmaster. He just nods. I'll cover this up for you, Mr. Black, but don't do any more outlandish things for a while. I can only cover you so much before the ministry finds your talent. If they find out, I don't know what will happen. After that, everything went back to the same for the most part. Quirrell never showed back up for obvious reasons, so the last few weeks of classes went great as Dumbledore took over the defense against the dark arts. Rather than having classes, he would have big lectures with every one of that year in it, but he only did them once a week. I learned more in those lectures than in all of my classes with Quirrell. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and I went to go see Lura almost every day. Harry and Ron eventually got close enough to Lura, so she let them pet her, while Hermione even got to ride her. I sent a letter to Auntie Dromeda to see if we could make a pen for her in our massive backyard, and she agreed. Hagrid even arranged a friend to help send her there. I ended the year with all O's, which made Hermione upset since she got an E in defense against the dark arts. As I said my goodbye to leave before the train shows up again, I walked out past the bridge to apparate home. It was then I felt my pocket glowing with warm light. I grabbed it without much thought and I heard Sis Dora's weak voice in my head. I'm sorry, Soren.
Thanks for listening.